कुरुत्वं कल
सुरूच व्हायची असं मीटिंग नाही तर
यायला पाहिजे आवाज.
आवाज यायला पाहिजे. कोणी बोलताना नाही समजा त्याच्यात. मी काय म्हटलं,
Good morning, sir. Badwek sir, good morning.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर. प्रभू झालेत का जॉईन?
Sir, तो chief guest
दिसले.
join sir. Yeah.
शहा सर दिसले मला.
Yes, and our third speaker is also joined.
Yeah.
From Algeria. Professor Dalila.
मी मॅडमला फोन करून देतो.
हो हो.
Yeah, I am here.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. We can see you.
Yeah, sorry.
morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Hello, Professor Dalila Madam.
Yeah,
Dr.
I am
Badwai,
listening.
sir is the principal of our college, Kamla Nehru College.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
We welcome you, sir, ma'am.
What's time there, madam?
It is 6 a.m. and everyone is sleeping here.
That's why I kept your talk na, after that, third one. Okay, na?
It's okay.
Hello, Professor Swaminathan, sir.
Hello, good morning, Swaminathan.
Swaminathan, sir. Good morning.
Dilip, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
How are you, sir?
In the short period, we are meeting twice on the virtual platform.
Gurnale?
Just मी बोलतो आता हे सुरू होत आहे.
मॅडम 5 मिनिटात
I
येत
got to
आहेत.
talk to Govind Devi. I informed her.
Hello, Professor Swaminathan, sir.
Hello.
Madam is joining na for inauguration.
She said she will join immediately. I meant that.
Sir, Swaminathan, sir, your voice is lower, so increase it.
1 minute.
Yeah,
minute.
so low volume. Yeah. Hello, good morning, Glady madam. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon here. Good afternoon here
Okay,
in the
here is
Philippines.
morning. Okay.
It's already afternoon here. I
So-
just finished. Thank you for inviting me. I just finished our own global women's breakfast.
Yeah. GWB 2022. Yeah.
We just finished it
So
an
you are
hour
finished,
ago.
Yeah, you are finished now.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Hello.
Madam, Professor Dr. Saha is here. He's a chief guest and IUPAC bureau member.
Yes. Good afternoon,
from
Dr.
India.
Saha.
Saha, sir.
Yeah, good morning, good morning, good afternoon.
Sorry. Good morning, rather.
Okay. Yeah, right.
How is it there in India? How are the cases of COVID? How's Omicron? Is it okay now? Is it better?
Yeah, it is improving. It is improving. It is better now. And we hope that in a couple of months, we should be moving towards normalcy.
Okay, that's good. How about in the universities? Do students go face-to-face or still online?
Well, we have started face-to-face in some colleges, and in some colleges, university, it is still online.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
right.
I'll just quick break and then I'll be back 2 minutes. Okay.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
The speaker is on.
कोणी ऑर्गनाईज केला
जो अपन ने कटिंग को और इसको बताया है सर्टिफिकेट को उसका वैल्यू एडेड प्रोग्राम का करने का और एक पार्कर को बताया है, तो आपने क्लास बताया है कि उनको कोई कौन सी क्लास का था?
Hello, Professor Prabhu sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Professor Gurjule.
Yes, sir.
Prabhu sir, good
Thank
morning.
you for joining, sir.
Dr. Prabhu, good morning.
और एक सेंड कर अभी
Mail पे ना।
वो भी देख लीजिएगा।
Prabhu, Dr. Prabhu sir, good morning.
स्वामीनाथन,
how are you?
जो है अभी वो फ्लैश हो रहा है बॉटनी के एक लेक्चर की वजह से बॉटनी के कुछ बच्चों का प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है।
फटिंग अजून कोण?
गोरे
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, sir. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. Gurnil sir, madam join झाले आहेत.
Oh, good morning, madam.
good morning, Principal sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. How are you?
कसे आहात तुम्ही?
मी छान आहे. तुम्ही पण छान दिसतात.
Congratulations for this activity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It is possible because of ACT.
Because of you, you are the inspiration and
Right, sir. Right.
Gurjule is there.
Our management and Smita ma'am is always
Yes,
behind
yes.
us.
Vanjari
They
madam.
always motivate us to organize such conferences.
Thanks to Vanjari madam also for this
Thank you, sir.
inspiration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam, namaskar.
पाच दहा 11:30.
Madam, can we start? Badwai sir?
Oh. Yes, you can proceed, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
A very good morning to one and all. Wishing you good health and healthy environment in this post-pandemic new normal situation. This is Dr. Shardul Wad on behalf of Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya. I welcome you all in international webinar on empowering diversity in science, which is jointly organized by Department of Chemistry, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, Association of Chemistry Teachers, ACT, and Department of Chemistry, Kalasalingam Academy of Research and Education, Krishnakoil, Tamil Nadu, in collaboration with International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, IUPAC Global Women's Breakfast. Respected participants, before moving further, it is an humble request to please mute their audio and turn off your video. Thank you. Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya is the best amongst the top colleges in Nagpur city. Our college name is being taken with respect of discipline by the parents as well as the academicians. Global Breakfast is an event that happens on a single day in February of each year in conjunction with the United Nations Day of Women and Girls in Science. The aim is to celebrate the accomplishment of women in science and to inspire younger generations to pursue career in science. The theme of 2022 is empowering diversity in science. Scientific innovations do not arise on their own. Each is brought forth through the hard work and creativity of scientists. Therefore, the quality of scientific research enterprise and its ability to meet the needs of and positively impact the lives of individuals, community, nations, and world is inextricably linked to the individual involved. Women and men from all types of science organizations working in all areas of science come together to share their thoughts either virtually or in person to meet the central goal to establish an active network of both men and women to overcome the barriers to gender equality in science. Hence, to initiate this intentional process of scientific fraternity, this webinar on empowering diversity in science is organized. Before we start the inaugural session, let me pay my homage to Honorable late Govindraoji Vanjari, the President of Amar Seva Mandal Nagpur. I also acknowledge the patronage of Honorable Dr. Suhasini Vanjari Madam, President Amar Seva Mandal, MLC, Honorable MLC Advocate Abhijit Vanjari Sir, Secretary Amar Seva Mandal, and Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Ma'am, Treasurer Amar Seva Mandal. I have got privilege to welcome Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu, Adjunct Professor and former Head, Department of Chemistry, Wilson College, Mumbai, who is the President of this inaugural session. I also welcome Honorable Bipul Saha, Director Research and Development in NACL Industries Limited, Hyderabad, and Chief Guest of this function. I am delighted to welcome Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Ma'am, Treasurer Amar Seva Mandal, and Guest of Honor of today's function. Further, I extend our sincere welcome to Principal Dr. Dilip Badwaik Sir and Vice Principal Dr. Pradeep Dahikar Sir, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya. I welcome Dr. W.B. Gurnule, convener of this webinar. I welcome all distinguished guests for the inaugural session and the technical session. I must acknowledge the participants for this overwhelming response. I welcome all academicians, researchers who have registered for this webinar on empowering diversity in science across the globe. To initiate the inaugural session, now I request all the dignitaries to proceed to light the digital lamp by your auspicious hand. Can we have a video clip? Inaugural session and the technical session. I must acknowledge the participants for this overwhelming response. I welcome all academic researchers who have registered for this webinar on empowering science across the globe. To initiate the inaugural session, now I request all the dignitaries to proceed to light the digital lamp by your auspicious hand. Can we have a video? I must acknowledge the participants for this who have registered for this webinar on empowering science across the globe. Thank you, sir. To move ahead, I request Dr. Gurnule, the convener of this webinar, for his welcome address. Over to you, Gurnule, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vaksa. Good morning to all of you. On behalf of Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya and ACT, I welcome all the resource persons, academicians, and participants for this IUPAC International Webinar on the Empowering Diversity in Science, organized by Association of Chemistry Teachers, Mumbai, Department of Chemistry, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, and Kalisalingam Academy of Research and Education, Krishna Koil, in association with the IUPAC Global Women Breakfast 2022. Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu sir, President of this inauguration session. Honorable Dr. Bipul Saha sir, former Director of R&D, NACL Industries Limited, Hyderabad, and Bureau Member of IUPAC. Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam, Treasurer of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur. Honorable Professor Brijesh Pare sir, but could not join today due to some unavoidable circumstances. Professor M. Swaminathan sir, Principal of our college, Dr. D.S. Badwaik sir, Vice Principal Dr. Dahika sir, dear participants from the globe and from various parts of the country. At first, I would like to make a special mention of Honorable Dr. Vanjari Madam, President of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur, and Honorable MLC Advocate Abhijit Vanjari sir, Secretary of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur. They, though they could not join us, yet their blessing and best wishes are with us. I also extend my warm welcome to Honorable Dr. Bipul Saha, former Director of R&D, NACL Industries Limited, Hyderabad, and Bureau Member of IUPAC, for accepting our request to be a chief guest for this IUPAC GWB-2022 International Webinar. For the inauguration, Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam, Treasurer of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur, Madam has kind enough to have spared valuable time and to be present here. We are highly obliged to you, Madam. I offer a warm welcome on behalf of organizing committee. I also extend warm welcome to Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu sir, President of this inauguration session and General Secretary of ACT, Dr. D.S. Badwaik sir, Principal of our college, oblige us by accepting our request to be present for this inauguration session of this IUPAC International Webinar GWB-22. Chemistry often is known as the central science, having useful link with other sciences like especially the biology, physics, and therefore chemistry provide some structural data, reactivity data, and information about a reaction mechanism, and making it indispensable to other sciences. And because of there is a rapid advances in the synthetic methodology or mythology refinement in the instrumentation, that chemistry resulting in as a interdisciplinary subject. For example, material chemistry, chemical biology, biophysics, bioinorganic chemistry, geochemistry are the some interdisciplinary subjects. There are many societies of chemistry education which have made tremendous contribution to the science and technology. Chemistry and chemical processes have always had a major role to play in the development and use of materials. The scientific study of matter and its properties and interaction with other matter and with energy is an important part. It is a science that deals with the properties, composition, and structure of the substances and the reaction and transformation they undergo, and energy release or absorbed during those processes. So therefore, it is known as the central science. So chemistry is concerned with atoms as a building blocks. So the main objective of organizing this international webinar is to provide a platform for interaction and collaboration among the eminent professionals, researchers, scholars of different fields from academia, and to discuss the state-of-art development in empowering the diversity in science. This webinar will be definitely beneficial to the participants in their field in general and young students in particular. IUPAC serves the international scientific endeavor in the dual function of basic science and mission-oriented union. The union is in a unique position to contribute to the central interdisciplinary chemical sciences, strengthening the international chemistry and striving toward the inspiring high standard of excellence and relevance in academic and industrial research and promoting the service of chemistry to the society and to the global issues. These are the vision that shapes IUPAC activities toward the 21st century. And therefore, 2022 IUPAC Global Women Breakfast event will be held on a single day, 16 February 22. The theme of GWB of 2022 is the empowering diversity in the science. For this international webinar, around 4,165 participants have registered from 30 different countries like France, Indonesia, Taiwan, United States, China, Australia, Bangladesh, Nigeria, UAE, Malaysia, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Nepal, Mexico, Oman, South Korea, Canada, Philippines, Tanzania, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Morocco, Pakistan, Brazil, China, Uzbekistan, Hong Kong, Georgia, and Tanzania, and almost all the states of India. So I welcome you all, the participant on this occasion. We have an opportunity to be benefited by the talks of Professor Glady Completo, Professor of Chemistry from Institute of Chemistry, University of Philippines, Laguna, Philippines. Another speaker is also is a renowned scientist, Professor Gomati Devi, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Maharani Cluster University, Bangalore. And our third speaker, Professor Dalila Hamachi, which is a name is also included in 2% scientist, recently announced the list by the university, and madam is from the Algeria. So at last again, as a convener of today's this international webinar, GWB-22, I welcome again all the resource persons, speakers, academicians, and participants. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Vaksar.
Thank you, Dr. Gundale, for giving us the insight of the objectives of this webinar. Now I request Dr. Dilip Badwait, sir, Principal, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, to deliver his introductory remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shardul Vaksar. A very good morning to one and all, and hoping that all of you are enjoying good health in this COVID-19 pandemic. First, I pay homage to visionary leader, let's say Govindravji Vanjari, founder president of Amar Seva Mandal. On behalf of Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, I, Dr. Dilip Badwai, principal of the college, extend a warm welcome to all the respected guests in this inaugural function, research scholars, faculty members, and participants on the occasion of inaugural function of one-day international webinar or Empowering Diversity in Science, organized by Department of Chemistry, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, Association of Chemistry Teachers, Department of Chemistry, Kalaslingam Academy of Research and Education, in collaboration with International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. Chairperson for this inaugural function, respected Professor D.V. Prabhu sir, General Secretary ACT. Chief guest, Professor Bipul Shah, Director R&D, NACL Industry Limited, Hyderabad. Guest of honor, respected Dr. Smita Vanjari ma'am, Treasurer Amar Seva Mandal, and Senate Member RTM Nagpur University. Eminent speakers for this international webinar, Professor Glady Completo, Professor of Chemistry from Philippines, Dr. L. Gomati Devi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Maharani Cluster University, Bangalore, Professor Dalila Hamachi, Algeria, Vice Principal of Kamla Nehru College, Dr. Pradeep Daikar, Convener Dr. W.B. Durmule sir, Co-Convener Professor M. Swaminathan sir, all research scholars, faculty members, students who have registered from all corners of India and globe. Once again, I welcome you all with my words. Friends, the global breakfast is an event that happens on a single day in the month of February every year, in conjunction with the United Nations Day of Women and Girls Working in Science stream. The aim is to celebrate the accomplishment of women in science and to inspire younger generation to pursue career in science. The theme for GWB Global Women Breakfast 2022 is empowering diversity in science. Women and men from all type of science organizations working in all areas of science came together to share breakfast either virtually or in person. There is need to build a network of both men and women working together to address the barriers and inequalities faced by women working in science. It is observed that women make up only 28% of workforce in science, technology, engineering, maths, and men vastly outnumber the women, measuring in most of the all that science, technology, engineering, maths field in the colleges. But now the scenario is changing, and we can see that the women are at par with the men in all fields. The gender gap are particularly high in some of the fastest growing and high paid jobs of the future, like computer science and engineering. IUPAC is a unique position to serve as a leading organization and global platform where these difficulties and persistent issues can be addressed in transparent manner. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. The global breakfast facilitates the formation of communities on a local, regional, and international scale to effectively share ideas and strategies for progress. Friends, our Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya had converted COVID-19 pandemic into opportunities and organizes various national and international webinars on different topics, and some of them conferences we have organized in association with Association of Chemistry Teachers under the dynamic leadership of respected Dr. Suhasini Vanjari ma'am, President Amar Shah Mandal, respected MLC Advocate Abhijit Vanjari sir, Secretary Amar Shah Mandal, and respected Dr. Smita Vanjari ma'am, Treasurer Amar Shah Mandal. Our Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya each continue to attain new height, and in all three cycles, our Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya is re-accredited highest grade, and in third cycle we got A+ grade with CGPA 3.53 by NAC. Our college offers graduation in most of the stream, post graduation in most of the stream, and also having higher learning and research centers in subjects like physics, chemistry, electronics, computer science, English, and commerce. Many students had been awarded PhD degree, and many are pursuing their work from our center. We are imparting education to around 8,000 students. As Gurule sir and Shardul Waq sir rightly stated, we received overwhelming response. More than 4,000 participants registered for this international webinar. The eminent speakers in this webinar are internationally acclaimed in their areas. I hope this conference will definitely aid to the participants' knowledge. Wishing great success for this international webinar. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. With this introductory remark, now I take this privilege to invite Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam, Treasurer Amar Seva Manda, and guest of honor of today's webinar to deliver her address. Ladies and gentlemen, let me have a pleasure to introduce Honorable Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam. Dr. Smita Vanjari is an emerging name in the academic circle of Nagpur. She is actively engaged in the teaching, learning, and research activities in two faculties, humanities and education. She has done PhD in two streams, education and humanities. Her theses were critically acclaimed among the scholars. She has published many research papers in prestigious journals and edited anthologies. She has participated in national and international conferences and chaired plenary sessions as well as presided over sessions skillfully. She has authored a book on Indian diaspora entitled Voices from the Indian Diaspora, which is prescribed as a reference book for PG syllabus in Nagpur University. She has also written chapters in different books in the field of English literature. She is not only a curious academician, but an efficient administrator as well. She is an active part of administration in the Govindrao Vanjari Group of Colleges of Engineering, Pharmacy, Law and Education. She is the honorable member of the Rashtrasanta Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University Senate and treasurer of the Govind Urban Cooperative Society. So ladies and gentlemen, here is Dr. Smita Vanjari. Over to you, ma'am.
Sir, thank you. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, ma'am. Very well.
Very good morning to all. As a guest of honor, I'm extremely pleased to welcome you all at the international webinar on empowering diversity in science. Our Department of Chemistry has rightly seized the golden opportunity to organize this stimulating international event, GWB 2022. Their eminent guests or speakers are there in this international conference: Professor D.V. Prabhu, Dr. Vipul Shah, Professor Brijesh Pare, Professor M. Swaminathan, Principal of Kamla Nehru College, Dr. Badwaik sir, Vice Principal, Dr. Daikar sir, Convener of this conference, Dr. Gurnule sir. So I welcome you all. Our college is committed to provide quality education and promote research that will contribute to the development of our society. We feel elated and proud to have achieved significant milestone like being identified as A-grade college by NAC, DST and FIST and University Lead College. This spectacular journey has been impelling is all to achieve even greater height in the years to come. IUPAC was formed in 1990 by chemists from industry and academia who organized the need for international standardization in chemistry. The standardization of weight, measure, name, and symbol is essential to the well-being and continued success of the scientific enterprise and lead and to the smooth development of growth of international trade and commerce. This desire for international cooperation among chemists and facilitation of work of the international but fragmented chemistry community were the earliest characteristics of union. UNESCO has stated that the sustainability science approach is essential for effective decision making with regard to global sustainability. Since social environment and cultural system are closely related, this approach is a powerful reminder of the complexity of the challenges to the world is facing today. I feel it is the responsibility of academic institutions like us to endure to educate and advocate the development of this approach. This webinar is a part of such initiatives. The main topic of this international webinar is empowering diversity in science, which is useful to all researchers, PG student, UG student, and teaching faculties. It is no denying fact that any progress in the technology critically depend on the development of new and advanced functional material with improved and novel properties. Today's technology needs such material with unusual and extraordinary combination of properties for the present and the future industrial revolution. Needed in recent time, advanced material has become one of the most important and executing forefront field of research for the scientists and technologists across the world. Theme has been selected to accommodate a wide range of interests to facilitate the interdisciplinary research and development in various fields of science and technology related to science that can significantly contribute to the development of society and industry. GWB events are designed to be catalyst for change towards greater diversity in science. GWB event held in 2021 has demonstrated the need to build a network of both women and men working together to address the barrier and inequality faced by women in science. Sustainability development goal is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls through leadership development. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Therefore, this webinar is mostly beneficial to UG, PG research student and faculty member. A deliberation on such topic will help create better alternatives to understand the empowering in science. I appreciate the efforts of the organizing team for selecting such appropriate theme for the webinar. There are participants from India and across the globe. So I welcome them all and I wish them all the best and happy learning to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your thought-provoking words. Dear participants, today's chief guest is Honorable Dr. Bipul Saha. Sir is a Director, Research and Development in NACL Industries Limited, Hyderabad, a gold medalist in chemistry with strong experience of senior management positions in renowned industries of the sectors, which includes Gada Chemicals, Monsanto, and Pfizer. Sir was also associated with the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. He is on editorial board of several international reputed journals and editor of Indian Society for Environmental Science and Technology newsletter. Dr. Saha is closely associated with International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, IUPAC. He has been elected as member of IUPAC Bureau for the period 2020-2023. I proudly like to announce that in 100 years of history of IUPAC, Dr. Saha is the third person from India to be elected in this position after Bharat Ratna Professor C.N.R. Rao and Professor Chandrasekhar. He is also Executive Committee member and Secretary of IUPAC Committee on Chemistry and Industry, a first Indian to hold this position. Dr. Saha was National Representative of India in IUPAC Division of Chemistry and Environment and was member of IUPAC Interdivisional Committee on Green Chemistry for Sustainable Development. He has been invited by American Society to be a member of the team to develop Global Code of Ethics for Chemists. Dr. Saha has been visiting professor in reputed universities and management institutes, including IITs. Dr. Saha carried out postdoctoral research with Nobel laureate Professor Derek Barton and has been awarded Homi Bhabha Gold Medal by BARC. Dr. Saha is invited as chairman, international resource person and speaker all over the world. In recent years, he has delivered speeches in several countries. It is really indeed great honor to have you as a chief guest, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now I invite Dr. Saha to deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wag. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wag, for the nice introduction. I would first of all like to thank the organizers of this international webinar. Today there are many eminent speakers and I will not take much time. So I will give you a brief history of Global Women's Breakfast Program. As you all know, International Year of Chemistry was celebrated in 2011. In the same year, the first global women's breakfast program was held to encourage women scientists to participate in the International Year of Chemistry and to celebrate the centenary of Nobel Prize of Chemistry Award to Madame Marie Curie. The Global Women's Breakfast Program was relaunched in 2019, which was celebrated as the centenary year of International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, and it was also the International Year of Periodic Table. The 2019 Global Women's Breakfast was highly successful, and it was decided by IUPAC to celebrate the event every year in the month of February. As you know, IUPAC is one of the largest global organizations in chemistry with members from 55 countries. Approximately 6,000 volunteers work for IUPAC through 8 divisions and 12 committees. The idea behind organizing Global Women's Breakfast is to encourage girl students to pursue career in science, to discuss ways and means to reduce gender gap, to highlight and celebrate contribution of women scientists, and to help networking of the women scientists. In this context, it is worth mentioning that in 2020, Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to 2 women scientists, Dr. Jennifer and Dr. Emmanuel. India has been taking a leading role in Global Women's Breakfast programs. Last year, India organized largest number of GWB events in the world. Out of total 324 events, which was held in 70 countries, India organized 61 events, which is the highest for a single country. There are not many events in which India is number 1, but GWB is an event in which India became number 1. And I take this opportunity to thank Association of Chemistry Teachers, Indian Chemical Councils, and colleges like you, which has made that possible. Coming back to the theme of the webinar, empowering diversity in science, I would like to mention that a global project on gender gap in science was organized by IUPAC, in which 60 countries participated. The conclusion was that gender gap exists across all disciplines, across all geographic regions, and across all employment sections. It is not just in India, it is all over the world, whether it's in USA or Canada or Australia, and in all different disciplines, whether it's chemistry, physics, the gender gap still exists. It is our responsibility to work out plans as to how we can reduce gender gap, promote women in diverse fields, and increase number of nominations of women in different committees and leadership positions. I am sure that this webinar will deliberate and give directions for the future. This I mentioned about that gender gap in science, which was organized by IUPAC. They have come out with some recommendations to reduce the gender gap. That is, engage families and communities to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics career for the girls. Increase number of nominations of women in scientific committees and awards. Give preference to women between 2 candidates at equal level competing for the same position. Take into account maternity when evaluating women's biodata. Alternate between man and woman in decision-making positions. Organize workshops specifically for women where role models and are invited as speakers to share their stories of success, and organize programs to enhance confidence, communication skills, and leadership quality for women. In the end, let me quote a few lines from the English translation of a Bengali poem. The name of the poem is Woman. It's a long poem. I will just quote 4 lines. It is like this. I sing the song of equality. In my view, gender difference is essentially a triviality. Everything that is great in the world, all the works, beneficial and good, half must be credited to woman, and to man, half only we should. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom on this gender equality. And Yes, it is necessary to have a equality, although we keep on saying and writing on the papers and it remains on the papers. So with this webinar, I guess it will be executed everywhere. Dear participants, President of today's webinar is Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu, the General Secretary of ACT, to deliver his presidential address. But before Sir proceeds to his address, presidential address, let me have a pleasure to introduce Dr. Prabhu. Professor D.V. Prabhu is Adjunct Professor and former Head, Department of Chemistry, Wilson College, Mumbai. Sir was a former Dean of Faculty of Science of Mumbai University and President of Indian Chemical Society, Mumbai branch. He is General Secretary of ACT. At present, he is the Chairman of Bombay Association for Science Education. His research interests are reaction kinetics, catalysis, and environmental chemistry. He has guided several students for their postdoctoral research and having numerous publications in national and international reputed journals. Dr. Prabhu has been a member of a National Steering Committee appointed by DAE, Government of India, to oversee the organization of Science Olympiads in India. He has served as a delegation leader to the International Chemistry and Junior Science Olympiads held at various national and international locations. Sir is a recipient of FRSC, is an elected fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry, London in May 2019, is a recipient of Best Chemistry Teacher Award of Chemistry Research Society of India in 2006. Also received award from the Association of Kineticists of India, award of Indian Chemical Society 2002. It's really great honor to have you as a president here, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, I invite Professor Prabhu to deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your kind introduction. Respected Principal Dr. Dilip Badwaik, respected Dr. Smita Vanjari, our most eminent chief guest, Dr. Bipul Saha, Professor Vasudev Gurnule and Professor Swaminathan, the conveners of Global Women's Breakfast, Professor Brijesh Pare in absentia, and all the eminent speakers and the delegates. It's my pleasure on behalf of Association of Chemistry Teachers to welcome all of you to this Global Women's Breakfast, which has been organized by the Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur. The Global Women's Breakfast is a very unique activity of IUPAC and coincides with the UN Day of Women and Girls in Science. Since its founding in 1990, IUPAC has been in the forefront of innovation in chemistry education and research. And one such activity is breakfast. This year, there are 300 events going on in 70 countries, out of which 51 are in India. Last year, we had a record number of 61 entries, as stated by Professor Bipul Saha. The event is organized all over the world to celebrate the achievements of women in science and also to motivate the young students to take up science as a career. This year's theme, Empowering Diversity in Science, will bring together all the organizations and the people working in science education so that they can share their experiences either in person or online. In most countries, the number of women working in science is very low, and women's education is given less importance. We must create conditions which will encourage the enrollment of girls in science streams and motivate our girls to take up science as a career. The Global Women's Breakfast tries to create an active network of people all over the world and to catalyze the formation of communities with a scientific temper, both at the national and international levels. Coming to chemistry, we have before us quite a few women scientists as our role models. Professor Asima Chatterjee was an outstanding organic chemist and did research in the field of alkaloids, discovered anti-epileptic and anti-malarial drugs, and motivated a whole generation of ladies to take up science studies. Dr. Janaki Ammal was an outstanding botanist who worked on plant breeding, cytogenetics, and cytogeography. And Dr. Janaki Ammal campaigned against the hydroelectric project in the Silent Valley, Kerala, and helped in the stalling of this project, thus saving the very fragile environment. Dr. Kiran Majumdar, chairperson Biochem, is another shining example of a woman who has achieved so much in science and in industry. Several ladies are busy in the Indian space missions of ISRO, particularly the Chandrayaan and the Mars missions. At the same time, we must remember the women scientists were not given their due share of credit in their discoveries. Just to state a couple of examples, Rosalind Franklin was a close associate of Watson and Crick, who discovered the structure of DNA. But Watson and Crick got the Nobel Prize, but Rosalind Franklin was not given her share of credit. Lise Meitner was a close colleague of Enrico Fermi, who was discoverer of nuclear fission. But sadly, Lise Meitner did not get her credit of the discovery. So we have to see that not only the women are there in science, but they should be given due credit for the work which they are doing. Association of Chemistry Teachers, which is the national registered organization of the chemistry teachers and scientists of India, is closely connected with the IUPAC activity, especially GWB. This year also, we are having a large number of entries, thanks to our members. I would particularly like to thank Dr. Brijesh Pare, our president, and the convener of this year's GWB, Professor Vijendra Singh, for this record number of entries. I would also like to thank very particularly Dr. Bipul Saha, IUPAC Bureau member, for his constant guidance and support in the organization of Global Women's Breakfast. The Association of Chemistry Teachers, founded in 2000, completed 20 years in 2020, and we have been organizing several activities like national and international conferences, training workshops, celebration of National Chemistry and National Science Days, activities in schools and colleges, participation in the Indian National and International Science Olympiads, so on and so forth. And in all our activities, our women members have played a leading role, about which I am very proud. I wish GWB 2022 grand success, and thank very particularly Professor Vasudev Gurnule and Professor Swaminathan for organizing this activity on such a large scale. I am particularly happy that more than 4,000 delegates are participating, and I hope they will carry forward the message that science should be for all, men and women should be encouraged to take part in science activities. So thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful and thought-provoking words. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are ending up the inaugural function of International Webinar on Empowering Diversity of Science. Now I invite Professor Swaminathan, sir, to propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, Swaminathan, sir. Swaminathan, sir, please unmute yourself.
So thank you, Professor Dr. Saul. And is it audible now?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, as the president of today's function, Dr. D.V. Prabhu, and the chief guest, Dr. Bipul Saha, and the guest of honor, Dr. Samita Vanjari, and the principal of today's function, principal, Dr. Badwick, and all these patrons of this conference, dignitaries, and invited speakers, and participants, good morning to all of you. So it's my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of ACT, Kalasalingam Academy of Research and Education, Kamla Mahavidyalaya, and IUPAC. And first, let me thank that Professor D.V. Prabhu for his nice, excellent presidential address. And I thank the chief guest of today's function, Dr. Bipul Saha, for his, remarkable address on this function. And I thank Dr. Samita Vanjari for his guest of honor address, and I thank Dr. Badwick, D.S. Badwick, the principal of this Kamla Mahavidyalaya, for his introductory address. And it's my pleasure to thank all the patrons of this conference, particularly Dr. Our Vice President, Dr. Sasi Anand, who is encouraging us to do all these programs, and Dr. This Amal Seva Mandal, President, Secretary, and Treasurer. And all these patrons, and particularly Dr. Prabhu, and Dr. Brijesh Pare from ACT. And it's my pleasure to thank the eminent speakers today. 3 speakers we have, and 1 speaker is Professor Gladys from Philippines, and Professor Dr. L. Gomadi Devi from Vice Chancellor of Maharani Cluster University, Bangalore, and Professor Dalila Hamechi from Algeria. So it's my pleasure to thank for their, their acceptance to deliver the lecture in this Global Women breakfast. And I thank finally all the participants, and particularly because that we have the participants from all over, the world, so many countries, nearly 165 countries. And it's my pleasure to welcome and also thank them for the participation on this Global Women Breakfast. And finally, I thank Dr. Gurnale for taking so much efforts, because of his efforts, we are able to get all these registration and also the participations. I thank Dr. Gurnale and thank one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. With this, we are ending inaugural session, and now I invite my colleague, Dr. Sarita Tiwari, to proceed ahead with the technical session. Over to you, Dr. Sarita Tiwari.
Thank you, Vak sir. So good morning, one and all. This is Dr. Sarita Tiwari. I welcome you all to the technical session of one-day international webinar on empowering diversity in science. So we are starting with the technical session, and before that, I request all the participants to mute their mic. Briefing about the technical session, we have total 3 lectures from different eminent speakers. Our first speakers of today's technical session is Professor Gladys Completo. Dr. Completo is working as professor at Institute of Chemistry, University of the Philippines, Los Banos. She has obtained a PhD in chemistry at University of Alberta in Canada. She pursued further postdoctoral research and professional development training in the USA, such as the Scripps Research Institute, University of California, Los Angeles, and the University of California, Davis. She also obtained her BS Chemistry and MS Agricultural Chemistry degree at UPLB. Dr. Completo has 2 USA patents, 1 copyright, and 24 peer-reviewed scientific publications. 21 of those are in high-impact international journals. Her research group also won 9 local and international research poster and oral presentation awards. She also has 38 oral and poster presentations in local, national, and international conferences as an independent researcher, and 19 presentations as a PhD student and postdoctoral fellow. She has also given 15 invited lectures as a plenary speaker, resource speaker, and guest speaker. Dr. Completo has active collaboration with researchers from local and foreign academic institutions, research agencies, and industry partners, such as University of California, Davis, University of Alberta, Canada, Academia Silicea, Taiwan, Lung Center of the Philippines, UPLP Biotech, Philippine Caraboya Center, Pascal Pharma Corp, etc. That also provided training opportunities for IC's faculties, researchers, and students. During the pandemic, she and a core group of the Institute of Chemistry alumni rallied other IC alumni and friends to donate financial support on several projects such as War on Waste, Chemical Waste Disposal Initiative, donation of face masks to UPLB, and provision of antiseptic alcohol, face masks, and cash to students and university employees. She also co-led the establishment of a non-profit advocacy organization, Advancing Chemistry for Tomorrow, that organized 3 career orientation webinars to students and young professionals in the Philippines in 2021. She served as a resource speaker in several Philippine science system-wide chemistry teachers training and as a judge in several national chemistry quiz contests. Dr. Completo received 7 awards during her PhD and postdoctoral fellow and 5 local awards as a professor and student scholar. In 2016, she was named as one of the top 100 scientists in the Philippines. We are glad to have such eminent speaker for our technical session. Today, she is going to talk on the topic, diversity in chemistry research from sugars to glycoconjugates. With this introduction, I request our speaker, Dr. Completo, to enlighten the participants with her knowledge and experience. Over to you, ma'am. Dr. Completo, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much for that kind introduction. Let me just share my slides. Can you see it now? My slides? Is it okay?
No, ma'am, it's not visible, ma'am.
It's not visible? Oh.
No.
Oh, wait.
Try it again, ma'am.
Wait.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see it?
Now we can see. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Ayan, ngayon. Can you check? Okay, so again, thank you for that kind introduction. And I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to celebrate this event with you. So as you mentioned, allow me to present my talk entitled Diversity in Chemistry Research from Sugars to Glycoconjugates. So my talk is a combination of non-technical, and then later on, I will be giving the presentation about my research projects. So let me start with this question: is there really gender bias in science? So let me illustrate it using a simple Google Translate exercise. And if you type in these 2 sentences, she is a scientist, he is a nurse, and translate it into a language that does not have gender pronouns, such as our language Filipino, here is the translation. Siya ay isang scientifico, isa siyang nurse. When you translate it back to English, here's the result shown after automatic translation. It was switched. He is a scientist. She is a nurse. Interesting, right? So there seems also to be a bias in the algorithm. So if you look at the number of the Nobel Prize that have been awarded to women between 1901 to 2021, although there's a trend of increasing numbers, the total is 59 times. But Marie Curie received 2 Nobel Prizes in different fields. So this means that there are 58 women out of 975 awardees of the Nobel Prize between 1901 and 2021. That's almost only 6%, which is really a very low number compared to the number of male awardees of the Nobel Prize. Marie Curie is the first woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize and still the only person to receive the prize in 2 different fields. She discovered 2 new elements, radium and polonium. And Marie Curie, you can see here in this picture, Marie Curie using chronometer in the process of measuring radioactivity in the laboratory. She examined a lot of substances and minerals for signs of radioactivity. And what you can see here is the mineral pitch blend, which was more radioactive than uranium, and concluded that it must contain other radioactive substances. She was able to extract 2 previously unknown elements, polonium and uranium, but both more radioactive than uranium, rather polonium and radium. But discovery doesn't give one a Nobel Prize. It's the application of what you have discovered. Here in this picture, Marie Curie is explaining to a group of nurses the potential benefits of radium treatment. Marie Curie championed the use of radiation in medicine and fundamentally changed our understanding of radioactivity. Radioactive compounds became important as sources of radiation in both scientific experiments and in the field of medicine, where they are used to treat tumors. After which, in 1935, Irene Curie was given the Nobel Prize together with her husband, Frederick. Irene Curie is the daughter of Marie Curie. She worked together with her mother to provide mobile X-ray units during World War I. During those days, the only way for scientists to obtain radioactive elements was to extract them from their natural ores, an extremely difficult and costly process. But together with her husband, Frederick, Irene discovered the first ever created radioactive atoms. And now these atoms can be made in the laboratory. There was an explosion of research into radioisotopes and the practical applications of radiochemistry in medicine, especially in the fight against cancer. After 30 years, the Nobel Prize winner in chemistry was Dorothy Hodgkin for her determinations by X-ray techniques of the structures of important biochemical substances. Unlike most Nobel Prize winners, during this time, she was the sole Nobel Prize winner. Dorothy Hodgkin's life as a researcher began when she received a chemistry book containing experiments with crystals as a child. So you can see here in this picture that there are only 2 girls in this chemistry lab room. That is Dorothy with her friend Nora. And they even had to petition to take this chemistry lab rather than domestic science with the other girls. So during the 1930s, this method was used to map increasingly large and complex molecules, a mass of X-ray diffraction images. You can see here that Dorothy successfully determined the structure of penicillin and also the structure of vitamin B12, which is the most complex structure of all vitamins. So this was in 1964, and this was followed in 2009, where Ada Yonath was given the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, more than 40 years. So Ada Yonath was given the prize for the studies of the structure and function of the ribosome. It took her 25,000 tries, and the revelation that ribosomes from organisms that live under harsh conditions would be harder during crystallization. In the early 1980s, Ada Yonath managed to crystallize a thermophile bacteria. She mapped the entire complex molecule consisting of hundreds of thousands of atoms, a feat many considered to be impossible. 9 years later, Frances Arnold got the Nobel Prize for the directed evolution of enzymes. Evolution, the adaptation of a species to different environments, has created an enormous diversity of life. Frances Arnold has used the same principles, genetic change and selection, to develop proteins that solve humankind's chemical problems. So Arnold introduced mutations into the gene and reinserted the new variants into bacteria, which then produce new proteins. She looks through the resulting proteins to find those that exhibit the desired properties. She then extracts their DNA and repeats the process, breeding generation after generation until she gets a variant that does exactly what she wants. The uses of her results include more environmentally friendly manufacturing of chemical substances, such as pharmaceuticals and the production of renewable fuels. And in 2020, 2 female scientists, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, were given the 2020 Chemistry Nobel Prize for the development of a method for genome editing. Using CRISPR-Cas9 genetic scissors, it is now possible to change the code of life over the course of a few weeks. Using this, researchers can change the DNA of animals, plants, and microorganisms with extremely high precision. This technology has had a revolutionary impact on the life sciences, is contributing to new cancer therapies, and may make the dream of curing inherited diseases come true. The CRISPR-Cas9 gene scissors can lead to new scientific discoveries, better crops, and new weapons in the fight against cancer and genetic diseases. What does it mean being a female scientist? And in my case, what does it mean being a synthetic organic chemist? Is our journey considered as the road less traveled? Today, I will be sharing with you how empowering it is to work with the science community. Actually, I just hosted the same event in the Philippines this morning. It was enlightening, invigorating to discuss with other female scientists from different countries. We had speakers from the US and the Philippines. Achieving our goal of becoming a female scientist entails essential steps. Of course, the first step starts at an early age. You can already tell what are you passionate about. For me, it started in high school, when I was accepted in a very prestigious and competitive school in our country called Philippine Science High School. During our time, only 240 students are accepted per year. We were all Philippine government scholars and were advised to pursue science-related courses in college. So I took BS Chemistry at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, a national university in our country, and pursued graduate studies at the University of Alberta, where I was trained as a synthetic carbohydrate chemist. After which I had 2 postdoctoral training, where I did training in glycobiology at the Scripps Research Institute, and then proceeded to widen my horizon to do medicinal chemistry at the University of California, Los Angeles. After which, I started my academic career at my alma mater, the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. This career path is not unique to me, but it is very similar to anybody who wants to pursue an academic career. Was it smooth sailing? Of course not. There were failed reactions and experiments. With these failures, you become more creative, resourceful, and more resilient. I'd like to mention that when I joined UCLA to do medicinal chemistry, that's when I realized that indeed there are very few female synthetic chemists. I was assigned in a lab room where I was working with 5 huge Caucasian male synthetic chemists. But I never felt that I was a minority. I was empowered by these male chemists who treated me with respect and honor. It was an incredible experience that is still so vivid up to now. For students out there who would like to pursue an academic career, here are practical tips that I would like to share, at least that work for me. Of course, the first step, you have to believe that it is your calling. You just know while you're doing your PhD, and especially during your postdoctoral training. Most of PhD graduates who apply for postdoc training will usually go for the academic track. And then, second step is you learn about the academic system. You should attend professional workshop presentations and attend career-related events. You interview your mentor. There are trainings for you to develop your teaching philosophy and write your cover letter and how you answer during the interviews. Next, you need to find a good mentor. Finding a good mentor is difficult, but very important. There is no perfect mentor. Of course, you start with your PhD advisor, your postdoc mentor, and it can be your collaborator or a senior colleague. In short, you just need to learn from them, emulate their best qualities, and apply it to your own group. While you are building your own research group, you have to be updated by having journal clubs, attending conferences, attending brown bag seminars, and once you are tenured, you can even go for another training as a visiting professor. By attending conferences and seminars, you create good professional relationships by networking. To me, this is very important. Research projects are mostly collaborative, and you need the expertise of other scientists. After tenure, it becomes more challenging. You need to keep going and be more productive. You need to write proposals, you need to teach and build your research groups. You train more students, and you will have good students, and you surround yourself with good and smart people. You also need to accept that you are always the brightest, and your students can be smarter than you. And it's an accomplishment to be able to mentor a student who has the potential to be more successful than you. You keep on working hard, get inspired, and you repeat the same whole process. Now, as you develop your research group, of course, you need to learn to become a good mentor. And a mentor-mentee relationship is a two-way street. How do you attain an effective mentor-mentee relationship? As mentors, we need to be enthusiastic and passionate in imparting our knowledge and skills by explaining and giving examples and demonstrating processes and asking challenging questions so that you will inspire your mentee. Listening actively is an essential skill you will use throughout your relationship. You should show interest in what he or she is saying and make sure that you give time to each student. And you are open to alternative interpretations and approaches. It is an accomplishment to be and privilege to be able to mentor very creative students. Think of yourself as a learning facilitator rather than the person with all the answers. Help your protege find people and other resources that go beyond your experience and wisdom on a topic. And inspiring, you need to describe experiences your mistakes and successes of others, encouraging them all the time and inspiring them. And that will result to a confident and inspired protege. You introduce him or her to your colleagues. Aside from developing good mentoring skills, you have to also have work-life balance. That's another aspect that we need to address as a female scientist, and even male scientists have to do this. We need to integrate work-life balance. It is indeed challenging to attain, especially before getting tenure. Does it have to be always balanced and symmetrical for you to say that you have a work-life balance? Or can it be asymmetrical, like these types of stretching and bending that we learned when we studied IR spectroscopy? So let me now switch gears and present some of the highlights of my research. That's why I entitled my talk, Diversity in Chemistry Research from Sugars to Glycoconjugates. Let me start with this number 10 million. This number corresponds to the number of people infected with TB in 2020. And 1.5 million people actually died of TB. And statistics have shown that 1/3 of the world's population is infected with tuberculosis, and every second, one person gets infected with it. Why is it so difficult to treat tuberculosis? This is due to the emergence of what you call multi-drug resistant strains, or MDR-TB. And recently, the emergence of what you call extremely drug resistant strain, or XDR-TB. Okay, and the emergence of XDR-TB is basically a death sentence according to the World Health Organization. So they came up with this strategy, which they call the End TB strategy, where by the year 2035, they are anticipating that there will be a 90% reduction in TB incidence, okay, and 0% in TB-affected families facing a catastrophic cost due to TB. Okay, so together with the World Health Organization, still there is a need to come up with a strategy of treating tuberculosis. And that is one of the research topics that I've been working on for several years now. And one of the reasons why it's so difficult to treat TB, aside from the emergence of this MDR-TB strains and XDR-TB strains, is because of the highly impermeable nature of the mycobacterial cell wall. Here is a picture of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And here is the cartoon representation of the mycobacterial cell wall. And the moiety, or the complex molecule responsible for its impermeability, is what you call the mycoyl arabinogalactan complex, which is composed of mycolic acids, arabinan, and galactan chain. We're particularly interested in the galactan chain of this complex because it is essential for the viability of the microorganisms. And also, this galactan chain is composed of galactose residues in unique structure. If you recall your biochemistry, undergrad biochemistry course, most sugars or carbohydrates exist in its 6-membered ring form, which you call the pyranose form, just like these two structures here. But in this galactan chain, the galactose residues are in its 5-membered form, which you call furanoses. So, and it is linked via alternating what you call a beta 1,5 linkage and a beta 1,6 linkage. And what's very interesting about this galactofuranosis is that it is unique to mycobacteria. And so, to avoid significant toxicity, drug targets should be present in bacteria, but not in the human host. So, the general pathway for the biosynthesis of the mycoyl AG complex has been proposed. It involves the sequential addition of these sugar residues before it is transferred to peptidoglycan and added to mycolic acids to eventually form the complex. We're particularly interested with the enzymes that are responsible for the formation of the galactan chain. And you will learn later that we were able to identify that there are only 2 galactosyl transferases that are involved in the formation of that long galactan chain in the mycobacterial cell wall. And one question that you might ask is, are these enzymes involved in that biosynthetic pathway that I just showed you? Are these enzymes viable targets for drug action? In fact, isoniazid, which is one of the first-line drug against TB, is known to inhibit the formation of mycolic acid. And ethambutol, another TB drug, is known to inhibit the arabinosyl transferases, thus inhibiting the formation of the arabinon chain. But none of the currently used anti-TB drugs act via the inhibition of the mycobacterial galactosyl transferases involved in the formation of this galactan chain. But as I've mentioned, galactan biosynthesis is essential for the mycobacterial viability. So there is a new mode of action if we try to target the galactan chain and the enzymes involved in its formation. And because the galactose are unique, the galactofuranoses are unique to mycobacteria, then it is mycobacterium specific. So when we started working on this project, we look up the structure of the galactan chain. And we noticed that there are 3 different linkages present in this chain. The beta 1,4 and beta 1,6 here, the first one, and the first beta 1,5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the first beta 1,6 linkage, and then now the alternating 1,5 and 1,6 linkages. So we need to understand this and to determine whether there are several enzymes or one enzyme responsible for the synthesis of this galactan chain. We needed to synthesize these oligosaccharides, where there are disaccharides or trisaccharides with the alternating linkages, or longer oligosaccharides. And also we needed to know whether the presence of this linker unit is necessary for the action of the glycosyl transferases. And during the time, there was also another research group that was able to identify that, in fact, there is another enzyme, which is called GLFT1, which is responsible for the introduction of the first 2 GALF units before our enzyme in our lab, GLFT2, acts to create the full-length galactan. So after this, we were able to really report that 2 bifunctional galactosyl transferases are involved in the galactan assembly. During that time, we didn't have the crystal structure yet of GLFT2. And GLFT1 was just recently discovered. And after a few years, we were able to determine the crystal structure of GLFT2. And why is this important? the crystal structures of proteins and enzymes is a very valuable information when you do drug discovery, because you can do computational studies. Instead of synthesizing a lot of compounds and testing it against the enzyme, you can now predict whether a compound that you are designing will be recognized by the enzyme. So we did molecular docking studies and structure activity studies of potential inhibitors of GLFT2. Here is just an example of one of the potential inhibitor. And these are the examples, these are the structures that we tested against the enzyme. And from these docking studies, we were able to identify a pharmacophore. Okay? To design for possible inhibitors, the compound should have at least one sugar moiety, one carbohydrate moiety, provided that these 5-OH or 6-OH position have R groups that could disrupt hydrogen bonding. This would disrupt the interaction with one amino acid, key amino acid, aspartate residue in the active site of the enzyme. In addition, the presence of this UDP or UDP-like moiety could possibly increase the binding affinity of the compound. So from this, we also did ADME-tox studies, and we were able to identify top 5 compounds that could be potentially good inhibitors of the enzyme. So from a small molecule disaccharide, we decided to synthesize these target compounds with the aim of coming up, hopefully, that is a good inhibitor of our GLFT, which can be a new target of drugs for tuberculosis with a new mode of action, which is Mycobacterium specific. So this is just one of the research projects that I've been working on, and our group basically is interested in drug discovery. So from tuberculosis, now I would like to move on to one of our research projects wherein we want to identify glycoconjugates as potential biomarker in lung cancer and the use of natural products for anti-cancer screening. Okay, let me start this the discussion of this project with this slide showing the complexity of an organism. It turns out that during the early years of genome sequencing, the first sequence that was identified was from the budding yeast. And during that time, scientists were predicting that there should be a large number of genes. So when they finally reported that a budding yeast is composed of 6,000 genes, they were surprised. They were expecting a higher number, but maybe because yeast is a single-celled organism, then it makes sense that it only has 6,000 genes. And then it was followed by the discovery, the reporting of the genes, the genome of C. elegans. And they reported that it's composed of around 15,000 genes. So at least it doubled, more than doubled, the number of genes present from a single-celled organism, yeast, to C. elegans. And then after this, they also reported the number of genes, the genome of the Drosophila or the firefly. And to their surprise, it is only composed of 20,000 genes. And then when this was going on, scientists were already very busy and excited in coming up in discovering the human genome. And when finally it was reported, they were all surprised that human beings have only around 30,000 genes. Why are we so human beings are much more complex compared to these other organisms, but we only have 10,000 more genes compared to this Drosophila. And what's more interesting is that our gene sequences is 99.9% identical to that of the monkeys, but were so much more advanced and more complicated compared to them. So after the discovery of the human genome, a paper was published explaining the complexity of human beings. And it says here, the finding that the human genome contains fewer genes than previously predicted might be compensated for by post-translational modification of proteins. So modification of proteins, and one example of a post-translational modification is glycosylation, where proteins are attached with glycans or carbohydrates. Okay, and our cells are coated with, at the surface of our cells, are glycans. Most cells are glycosylated. Okay, so glycosylation is the most complex form of post-translational modification. You can see here that when glycans are attached to proteins, they are called glycoproteins. And glycans can also attach to lipids, and they are called glycolipids. So glycome is the totality of glycans produced by the cell. And what's more interesting about glycome is that it is dynamic, meaning to say that the glycan that is present, say for example, in this embryonic stem cell, is different to the glycans present in a differentiated cell due to the physiological changes. And what's more interesting is that the glycans present in a healthy cell is also different to the glycans present in a diseased cell. Because of these findings, molecular changes in cell surface protein glycosylation should be able to distinguish normal to disease states in cancer, and we should be able to identify potential biomarkers. And our project is interested in identifying potential biomarkers in lung cancer. And why study lung cancer? Because in the Philippines, it is one of the top causes of cancer-related deaths. And also, the age-adjusted death related to lung cancer is 15 per 100,000 of population, placing Philippines as number 80 in the world in 2011. But there are still issues. Usually, lung cancer is getting detected in the late stages, and it's already metastatic. And the current treatment options are frequently inadequate. So what is still needed? The development of diagnostic methods, discovery of biomarkers, and eventually new drugs. So another question that you might ask is, are sugars the key to target lung cancers? Are there unique glycans and glycoproteins from Filipino lung cancer cells that can serve as biomarkers, especially for early stage lung cancer? And are the enzymes involved in these changes? Can they serve as viable targets for anti-lung cancer drugs? And can we use extracts from plants, from Philippine plants, as potential anti-lung cancer therapeutic agents? And how are we addressing these questions? By doing glycomics and glycoproteomics, utilizing advanced analytical techniques such as liquid chromatography and tandem mass spectrometry. So here's a quick flow chart of our analytical method, where it involves the use of our samples and use of enzymes to remove the glycans from the protein. And once the glycans are separated, you can either identify them as N-link or O-link before it and purified before it is introduced to an LC-MS instrument. And the protein that was also separated can be also identified using a different method and different purification method before it is entered or injected into an LC-MS instrument. And based on the library and retention time of the glycans that are detected, we are able to identify the structures of the glycans present in the cells. So here's an example of the glycans we were able to detect from a known lung cancer cell line A549. So you can see here that it is highly monocylated. It is classified as either undecorated and sialylated or fucosialylated. We wanted to test whether our method can really identify or differentiate the glycans present between different cancer cell lines. So we tested different cancer cell lines, and this is the normal lung cell. And then these are two different types of lung cancer cell lines. And you can see a difference in their in the profile of the glycans present. The most striking of which is the greater than twofold change in cancer tissue for high mannose glycans, but higher levels of sialofucosylated. These are the different classifications of glycans that we were able to identify. And higher level of sialofucosylated glycans in normal compared to the cancer cell lines. And are these different from the tissues of Filipino lung cancer patients? And here is just an example of our results, where here we used a lung tissue from a patient suffering from stage 1 lung cancer. And you can see that there is a difference in the profile. See that the pink here are the sialylated glycans. There's a huge number percentage compared to those other known lung cancer cell lines and compared to the normal lung cell. So once we are able to identify the glycans present in the lung cancer patients, or we even have serum samples of the patients, we tried the different natural products that we were able to extract. We have an in-house natural product library from 100 plant species from different more than 300 plant, and we were able to obtain more than 300 plant extracts and fractions and tested it against A549, a lung cancer cell line. And by further purification, we were able to identify some extracts from different plants with high activities. So this is the process that what we are doing here in the Philippines. Because of the enormous natural products available in our country, we would like to test these natural products, but of course we have to purify them and identify them and test it not just against the known cancer cell line, but to the lung cancer tissue samples and lung cancer serum samples that we obtained from cancer patients. So this is where I will end my research talk. I would like to show you now our campus. This is the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and we are at the foot of this mountain, Mount Makiling. And if you go hiking, and if you're at the top of Mount Makiling, here is the Mount Makiling forest canopy. You can see that it's composed of huge number of trees. And here there are different trees and plants present in the forest. And we can compare it with the science community, that we need each other and we need to network and collaborate with one another, not just among female scientists, but male scientists and female scientists working together to empower diversity and science. Otherwise, we won't be able to sustain the beautiful forest of Mount Makiling. This is, I'd like to acknowledge my students. These are research group, and this is also the large group that is working on our lung cancer research. And this is the different research groups that we've been collaborating with. So we are not just working with Filipinos, we also work with foreigners, and yes, we have a collaborator, Dr. Calabrilia from UC Davis. This is it. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting the pivotal roles of women in science and sharing your research findings related to conjugates, glycoconjugates in tuberculosis disease and approach to use as a biomarker. So thank you again. And if any participants have any questions with them, they can ask. Okay. Ma'am, if any participants have any query, they can write it in the chat box. So you can answer it simultaneously. And we will proceed with our next speaker. So thank you again, ma'am, for your valuable time. Now, the second speaker of this technical session is Professor L. Gomati Devi. I'll give a short introduction about our second speaker. She received her MSc degree in 1981 from the University of Mysore and obtained her PhD in chemistry from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, India. She was a CSIR Research Fellow during the year 1985 to 1987. She was awarded by prestigious state government awards like Sir C.V. Raman Award in 2008 and Best Research Publication Award in 2011 by Vision Group and Department of Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka, India. She was nominated by UGC for Indo-Hungarian Educational Exchange Program to visit University of Szeged, Hungary in 2007. She is currently serving as Vice Chancellor of Maharani's Clusters University. She has served as chairman in the Department of Chemistry in the year 2016 to 2019 and also worked as a senior professor in the Physical Chemistry section, Department of Chemistry, Bangalore University, Bangalore. Her research interest spans a broad spectrum of phytochemistry involving energy, environmental, and materials chemistry field. She has authored more than 125 research articles in international peer-reviewed journals and has authored several review articles and physical chemistry textbooks. She has been a reviewer in over 45 international peer-reviewed journals of high impact factor. One of her review articles in Journal of American Chemical Society was given just accepted status, and the graphic image of this article was selected for cover page of November 2011 issue. Her articles are cited in most reputed journals like Chemical Reviews and also by Nature's publication. She has supervised 17 PhD and 9 MPhil students till date. She has delivered several invited lectures in India and also at University of Debrecen and University of Szeged, Hungary, and also in an international conference held at Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the year 2014. She also visited Wuhan University of Technology, Wuhan, China, to deliver invited lecture in the international workshop on graphene and C3N4 based photocatalyst organized by State Key Lab of Technology for Material Synthesis and Processing, Wuhan University of Technology. Her H index is 34, I-10 index of 67, and total citation exceeds more than 6,500, which is a very big achievement. Her current research interest includes the synthesis of new solar energy, solid semiconductor materials for removal of dye and hazardous organic chemicals. Other advanced oxidation processes include like mediated photocatalysis, photoelectrical catalysis, phenton and photopenton process. Upon superannuation, she was appointed by the government of Karnataka as founder vice chancellor of Maharani Cluster University, Bengaluru, a public university established under RUSA scheme of government of India. Today, she is going to speak on the topic surface plasmoic resonance effect for efficient photocatalysis. With this, I request Professor Gomati Devi ma'am to deliver her talk. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. There is some problem of opening the slides. I'll just do it and I'll come back, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Professor, are you able to hear me?
Ma'am, you are not audible.
My slides, they are trying to.
Ma'am, you unmute yourself.
It's unmuted. Hello. Unmuted, sir. There is some technical problems that I'm not able to show my slides.
Hello, madam.
Audible, you are visible, but slides are not coming. That is why.
Yes, sir.
No, audible and visible, your face and but slides.
I have done that, sir, but some technical problem is showing.
Madam, open your presentation and minimize it. Okay. Then share the screen. Open the presentation. हेलो हाँ अभी मैं काम में हूँ अभी काम में हूँ घर पे हूँ कल आने का हाँ हेलो मैडम आप open your presentation okay minimize it and then start the sharing and then open your presentation yeah.
I think it can be shared from the host side also. If it is there in with the host, the presentation can be shared from the host.
Yes. Hello, Professor Swaminathan sir.
Madam, open your PPT and share your screen.
Sir, I opened it. Can you are you able to see it?
Put the share screen. Yes, it's coming.
Yes, okay.
Yes, sir. Can I start, sir? Now? So this is means I have not made any slides for
You can start, madam.
around the world and across the innovative women have developed, tested, perfected their creations, and yet most of us it is hard for us to name even single woman mentor. There are responsible for some of the things.
Excuse me, ma'am, your voice is vibrating. Both of the mics are open. You must mute one mic. You have logged in through two systems. Both the mics are open. So you can just mute one mic. The voice is vibrating, ma'am.
Can come back, madam, so that it will the problems will be solved, I hope.
Sir, is it audible now? Is it clear?
Yes, it is okay, sir, now.
It's okay, right? I'm sorry for the glitch. I'll be sharing the screen. 1 minute. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Thank you.
So today I thought I'll just mention some names very active and who had invented many things. Like today, I just thought of remembering Margaret E. Knight, who was a scientist who just made some flat-bottomed paper bags, and she had a patent for it. 100 different machines she invented, out of which almost 20 were patented. And second person, Josephine Cochrane, American inventor. She's a mechanic. She invented a mechanical dishwasher around 1886. I think we can know that this long back she had invented such things. And another person, Mary Anderson, she was in 1905. She invented windshield wipers in a car, and her invention was not recognized up to 1922, and the importance was given in 1992 by Cadillac car manufacturers. So in this way, there are many people who did so much of important inventions, and their names were completely forgotten in the history. The fifth person is Grace Hopper, and she's a programming pioneer. She's a mathematician, US Navy Reserve officer, and she was instrumental in changing numerical codes to codes in their own languages in the computers. And she invented the first compiler in 1952. In the same line, I can mention another one name, that is Hedy Lamarr. She was a glamorous film actress, and her inventions is found with I think basis for all today whatever technology we are using, like GPS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi technology, etc. She's in spite of being an actress, she was a very good mathematician and engineer. She invented frequency hopping, which was used in those days for World War II for encrypt torpedoes, and she could control the signals. And she had the patent in 1942, but her work was recognized only in 1962. And in the similar way, I think in recently, our physicist Donna Strickland, 2018, she got the Nobel Prize in Physics for light and laser, high intensity burst of laser light. And this is the basis for LASIK eye surgery. And even this is used for tiny drill and precise holes, and which can be made by using lasers. To name few of the Indian scientists, Asima Chatterjee was an organic chemist, and her name is well known in phytomedicine, anti-epileptic drugs, anti-malarial drugs, and I think we should mention Janaki Ammal. She is an Anglo-Indian botanist. Cytogenetics and phytogeography is her work-related fields, and she got Padma Shri in 1977. The last, I mean, there are many Indian women who were very active in research, but Rajeshwari Chatterjee is the first woman engineer from Karnataka, and she was professor in ISC, Indian Institute of Science, and she was in the electrical communication department, and her work also was recognized recently, and many women in this way who were very good achievers were recognized only in the later date. So today I thought of talking about my topic today is synchronously achieving the surface Bi0 bismuth, metallic bismuth is Bi0 metallization, and incorporation of these ions into already doped W6 plus is tungsten and nitrogen doped TiO2 lattice by hydrothermal reduction method. And here I will be concentrating on surface plasmonic resonance and effect of efficient photocatalysis. I was working at Bangalore University as professor in the chemistry department. Now I am presently working as vice chancellor in Maharani Cluster University. So just for introduction, in this photocatalysis field, TiO2 is most promising photocatalysis because of its strong oxidizing power and its stability against photocorrosion, chemical corrosion, and its chemical inertness. And moreover, it is quite affordable. It is available at quite affordable cost. Now, the significant drawback of this TiO2 is it is having a very wide band gap of 3.2 electron volts, which makes that material absorb only UV light. And UV light, instead of absorbing UV light, if we are able to make the material absorb visible light, and that what exactly I mean is solar energy, so that system becomes more efficient. In this regard, TiO2 has got the major concentration throughout the world. All the researchers, they try to concentrate on TiO2. TiO2 itself exists in 3 different crystal structures. Here I have shown 3 different crystal structures. What is rutile, another one is anatase, and the other one is brucite. Now, the exact principle behind photocatalysis is shown in this other figure, where a semiconductor has a valency band and conduction band. When light of appropriate wavelength is illuminated upon this system, the electrons from valency band jump into the conduction band, and we have both electrons and holes available for our reactions. Now, the electrons can be taken up by an acceptor, and a donor can donate the electron to the valency band. And what all process takes place at the semiconductor is what's shown in this figure. Now, why should we add anything into this pure semiconductor is the question. So here, the possibility for us is to incorporate metal or non-metal ions into TiO2. Why do we do this? That also we cannot keep incorporating any ion into the lattice, because it has to have a suitable ionic radii, and its electronic charge has to be checked, and all these other characteristics we have supposed to check for the both metal and non-metal ions. Now, by incorporating this metal and non-metal ions, we can play around with the band gap of the material. Now, for example, in my third point, I have shown that there is tungsten. If you are adding into TiO2, tungsten is W6 plus, so Ti is 4 plus. There is 2 excess positive charge, which I have represented it by the dots there. And for every 2 tungsten ions, that is 6 plus 6 plus, 3 Ti4 plus ions has to be compensated. So that for this charge neutrality maintenance in the solid, vacancy in the titanium ion is created. That vacancy can be ionized. Here we have shown that the deficiency is shown by the symbol comma kind of thing in the equation, and that is the vacancy of titanium, and 6 oxygens occupying the oxygen lattice site. So in a similar way, if you incorporate a non-metal ion like nitrogen into the TiO2 lattice, N is having 3 minus charge, whereas oxygen has 2 minus charge. So there is 1 excess negative charge. So to compensate that, oxygen vacancies will be created. So 2 nitrogen ions will be equivalent to 3 oxygen ions. And therefore, for maintaining the charge neutrality, vacancy in an oxygen lattice is created, and that's what is shown in the second equation. So these electrons and these vacancies which are created inherently in the solid can act as electron and hole traps, and these are the active sites at which absorption of substrate molecules takes place. So drawbacks of incorporating either metal or non-metal ion is sometimes many researchers show that say for example nitrogen doped TiO2, they have shown that sometimes recombination of process, that is whatever charges are created, that electron and holes, they may be lost in a loss process, and recombination is a loss process, and these charge carriers are not available for further reactions, redox reactions. So this is a loss process. Say, for example, like this, many metal ions are also tried in this context, like manganese, iron, nickel, copper, etc. have been tried, and they have, since these are transition metal ions, they have d orbital d states, and this also sometimes facilitates the recombination of the photogenerated charge carriers. They are the lower valency dopant ions or higher valency dopant ions has its own roles to play in the lattice. Say, for example, we have lower valency ions like sodium 3+ and chromium 3+, Ni2+, nickel 2+, or they are frequently oxidized to undesirable higher valency cations at high temperature in the presence of oxygen. Some amount of nitrogen may get lost from nitrogen doped TiO2 due to the treatments like calcination, solubilization, etc. And this may result in lower quantum efficiency. Now, this tungsten and nitrogen doped TiO2 has received a lot of attention. This is because of many reasons. Though I may not mention all the reasons here, I would like to tell you the thing. The intention of incorporating nitrogen ion into the TiO2 is to bring about visible light response. But the activation energy for such a incorporation is too high, and the activation energy can be brought down by incorporation of other ion like tungsten W6+. So if tungsten is incorporated into the TiO2, the activation energy for incorporation of nitrogen will be reduced to great extent, and that is the reason we incorporate tungsten along with nitrogen. This nitrogen itself, N3- ion, can occupy different lattice sites in TiO2. It can be present in interstitial sites, or it can be present at the substitutional site of oxygen. That is what we have shown in this figure. What is the energy required for substitutional nitrogen and interstitial nitrogen? This is what we have shown here. What is the energy involved? Such reactions is shown. Say, for example, if I have to incorporate nitrogen 8% by weight, then it is what is the energy involved in such a reaction is given here. So with this brief introduction, I will go to my next slide. That is nitrogen dopant is preferred to occupy near coordination site of tungsten. Incorporation of N3- ions can extend photoresponse of TiO2 to visible region. And tungsten and nitrogen charge compensation pair to reduce the formation of defects like oxygen vacancy, which usually occurs when you dope nitrogen into TiO2 lattice. The tungsten incorporation can increase the surface acidity of the catalyst. Co-doping induces tungsten 5D donor dopant energy level and nitrogen 2p accepted energy levels within TiO2. The donor levels are present just below the conduction band, and acceptor levels are present just above the valency band. So with this brief introduction, I'll go to the my next slide. So it is we have the effective strategy to modify the electronic and structural properties of TiO2 is to monitor the inherently created defects and imperfection whose formation is thermodynamically favored due to the reduction in free energy. Such modifications can be achieved by the incorporation of both metal and non-metal ions into the TiO2 lattice. The aim is to increase the lifetime of the photo-generated electron-hole pairs and also to narrow the band gap of extended absorption to the visible region. Incorporation of higher valency metal or non-metal ions into the TiO2 lattice is usually accompanied by the creation of oxygen vacancies, which I showed you in the previous slides. And these oxygen vacancies can be neutral or ionized. It can be singly ionized or it can be doubly ionized. And these are proven facts, and from the experiments and theoretical calculations, the presence of these oxygen vacancies is proved. Usually the oxygen vacancy is associated, or it is found next to the adjacent to the Ti3 plus ions. This Ti3 plus VO state is usually found below the conduction band, and all these details I'll keep talking in my next slides. And whatever work I am trying to present here is published in New Journal of Chemistry, Royal Society of Chemistry. And the ion chosen here is in addition to tungsten and nitrogen, the ion chosen here is bismuth. Why we have chosen bismuth is, I think if you go to the periodic table and check the electronic configuration of bismuth, it is xenon, which is completely filled inert ion, 4F14, 5D10, 6S2, 6P3. That means here all the orbitals, F, D and S orbitals are completely full, and only the P orbital is half filled. And we know that here completely filled orbitals or half filled orbitals are most stable. Such an ion, if it traps an electron or if it traps a hole, it will be completely unstable, and it releases this electron very fast, electron or hole very fast, so that the regeneration of bismuth ion takes place. At the same time, the recombination of these charge carriers are delayed, and these electrons and holes are available for our redox reactions. So now this bismuth ion, what we have to check here is it can exist in different oxidation states. It can exist as bismuth 3 plus or bismuth 5 plus. What type of an ion has got introduced into the lattice has to be characterized. And for example, now bismuth 3 plus ion is 120 picometers. In ionic radii of that, bismuth 3 plus is 120 picometers, and bismuth 5 plus is 74 picometers. If it has to be replaced the Ti4 plus, which is again ionic radii is 68 picometers. So the most suitable ion, bismuth ion in the TiO2 lattice can be around bismuth 5 plus. Even bismuth 5 plus is slightly larger than Ti4 plus ion. So here we have incorporated bismuth by two different preparation techniques. One is salt gel technique, which is usually taken up by many of the researchers, and the second technique is hydrothermal reduction method. And what was surprising was the amount of bismuth added in tungsten nitrogen doped TiO2. That is what is represented as WNT. The amount is same, but different types of incorporations takes place by different preparation methods. In the case of salt gel method, B5 plus ions were incorporated into WNT lattice, whereas in the case of hydrothermal reduction method, there were both Bi3 plus and Bi5 plus ions, both the oxidation states were present. In addition to these ions, some of the bismuth ions were reduced to Bi0 metallic state, and they were deposited on the surface of WNT catalyst. So here in this research work, the pollutant whatever we have taken is glyphosate, and which is represented as GP. So what are the preparation methods? The salt gel method we have given here. Diluted titanium tetrachloride solution is taken, and ammonia is added to it. And at the pH 7 or 8, ammonia is added to this solution, and titanium hydroxide gel is made. And to this titanium hydroxide gel, it is washed several times to remove all chloride ions and all ammonium, excess ammonium ions also. And the dopants are introduced into the gel, and we have incorporated 0.02 atom percent of tungsten and 0.2 atom percent of nitrogen, and the bismuth taken for both the samples is 0.05 atom percent. So when these dopants are incorporated, the precipitate is filtered and calcined at 500 degrees centigrade, and the same procedure is used for WNT. And for BIWNT also, we use the same procedure. So both the compounds are prepared by this technique. In the case of hydrothermal reduction method, WNT is taken, that is tungsten and nitrogen doped TiO2 along with ethylene glycol. To this, we are adding bismuth nitrate, and it is taken in an autoclave for and it is heated at 130 degrees centigrade for 20 hours. And in this case, as I mentioned earlier, both bismuth 3+ and bismuth 5+ get incorporated, and part of the bismuth exists as a metallic state on the surface of the catalyst. When we take the XRD, PXRD, that is powder X-ray diffraction, we can see that the black and pink and violet color is for black is for TiO2, and WNT is represented. WNT is tungsten, and nitrogen doped TiO2 is represented pink color. And the sample prepared by Sol-Gel method is BiWNT, which is represented by the violet color, and BI0 BiWNT is represented in the green color. What we can observe here in the powder X-ray diffraction is all the three compounds BiWNT, WNT, and TiO2 are all in the anatase phase. Whereas in the case of BI0 BiWNT, in addition to anatase, we have also obtained the peaks pertaining to rutile phase structure, and these are shown there: 110, 101, and 11 HKL values. Now, another important issue observed in an X-ray diffraction pattern in the slow scanning, we have observed that the peak between 25 2 theta value 25 to 25.5, the peak gets shifted as we go from TiO2, WNT, and BiWNT, BI0, BiWNT. So we can see that there is a change happening for 101 line, and this change also represents many things. The incorporation of these ions, it confirms. Second is, you can check that we have given a small table at the bottom where we have represented TiO2 has only anatase structure, and WNT also has only anatase, 100% anatase. BiWNT also is having 100%, whereas BI0 BiWNT, it is showing 81% of anatase and 19% of rutile structure in the compound. And we have represented the crystallite sizes also. As we move from the table TiO2 to BI0 BiWNT, the crystallite size keeps decreasing. Another important factor what we are supposed to observe here is both the anatase crystals and rutile crystals have the same crystallite size, 18.7 nanometers. But another thing is, what we can observe is the A parameter of the unit cell is not changing. It is almost constant, 3.78. Whereas if you observe the C parameter keeps increasing. So all these changes in the structural parameter confirms the incorporation of bismuth. And the last column is the lattice strain. The lattice strain observed due to the incorporation of these dopant ions is represented in the last column, and we can observe there the strain is higher for BI0 BiWNT sample. So next is we have taken the UV absorption spectra, which is shown here in this figure, and the band gaps were calculated from Kubelka-Monk method, and the band gaps of all these catalysts, whatever we have prepared, is 3.2 for TiO2, 3.17 for WNT, and 2.91 for BiWNT, and 2.89 for BI0 BiWNT samples. The band gap narrowing takes place for WNT, that is tungsten and nitrogen doped TiO2, because of these dopant ions. And in the case of BiWNT, that is also because of incorporation of bismuth ion. In addition to these things, what we can observe here is, you can observe that green line in the spectra, which shows that there is a maximum observed in the visible region, that is around 475 nanometers. And this is due to the surface plasmon resonance effect because of nanometallic BI0 deposits on the surface of BiWNT catalyst. So as other calculations, what we have done is there is something called IUPAC energy calculations, which can be done by using the equations given here. Alpha is equal to alpha naught into e to the power of h nu by EU. EU is the IUPAC energy, and alpha is the optical absorption coefficient, and alpha naught is a constant. And if you calculate this using this equation, we have obtained the IUPAC energy for BIWNT as 0.32, and for BI0 BIWNT it is 3.31 electron volts. And these are the things which can be used for our further study. And this is the BET specific surface area measurement, and we can observe the hysteresis loops for different samples here. And according to IUPAC, the observed hysteresis loops belong to type 4 isotherms. So this type of isotherm predicts particle size and prepared samples to be in the mesoporous range, and the solid is assumed to contain bundle of capillaries, various sizes, and free access to these pores. But what we have to observe is every sample has shown hysteresis loops, and the area in between this hysteresis loops is higher for BI0, BIWNT sample. This implies that though there are capillary type of pores, these pores are something special. We call them as ink bottle type of pores. That means at the beginning they will be narrow, and at the bottom it is the pores are very broad. So whatever absorbed material goes inside, it gets trapped in this hysteresis ink bottle region, and everything will not be deabsorbed. That is why we get the hysteresis loops. Absorption curve and desorption curve doesn't fall on one another. So this represents the mesoporosity of the sample, and whatever isotherms we have obtained, they are type 4 isotherms according to IUPAC classification. And here another this table gives different details about the surface area measurement. The pore volumes were also calculated, and the pore volume keeps increasing. That means the material becomes more porous for BI0, BIWNT, and surface area also has increased because of this porosity. The surface area of the sample also increases. We can see that 107.5 meters square per gram, and average pore diameter is in this range. So as I mentioned, BI0, BIWNT sample is wider than the isotherms for other samples, possibly due to the trapped adsorbed gases which remain in the ink bottle portion. Now, morphology of the sample, we could not find out much change from sample to sample, and the presence of these ions, incorporated ions into the solid, is also confirmed by IDAX studies. IDAX patterns are given at the bottom of this, in the second line. And FTIR is another technique, that is Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy is used to find out, characterize the sample, and we have obtained the spectrum in the following way. And the bands which are assigned for particular vibrations is also mentioned in the table. And OH bonds, all transition metal oxides, inherently they have hydroxyl groups adsorbed on the surface, and these hydroxyl groups can be recognized at frequencies 3200 and 1630, and the presence of nitrogen is also confirmed, and presence of bismuth is also confirmed by the various peaks observed in the IR spectrum. So this is another things what we have to observe here is we have taken the XPS spectra to find out first of all whether the particular ion has got incorporated or not. Another thing is in what oxidation states these ions are incorporated, that is also we are supposed to characterize. In this regard, we have taken the XPS of titanium and bismuth, tungsten, nitrogen, and oxygen ions in the samples. And what we can observe is from the Ti spectra, we can confirm that Ti is present in the +4 oxidation state. That is Ti 2p 3/2 or Ti 2p half spin states were taken, and the binding energy is around 459 to 464, which confirms the titanium to be present in the +4 oxidation state. There is slight variation in the binding energy of these states for bismuth doped samples, and this is due to the lattice interreactions. Now, for another important peak, XPS peak is bismuth. Bismuth 4F 7/2, bismuth 4F 5/2 peaks were observed at 159 and 165 electron volts, and binding energy values of bismuth 3+ is around 158.6 and 163.9. The obtained higher binding energy in the present case implies the presence of Bi 3+ X. That means the oxidation state may be higher. The bismuth may be present in the higher oxidation state. Maybe preferably it may be Bi 5+ ions. Two small intensity peaks were observed at 157 and 162.6 electron volts, which confirms the bismuth to be in the metallic state, and this is observed only for Bi0, BiWNT sample. Now, further XPS studies have confirmed by deconvoluting Ti3p peaks, we could obtain tungsten 4F binding energy peaks, and they were observed at 36.3 and 39.3 electron volts respectively. And this confirms tungsten to be present in +6 oxidation state. In addition to these things, we could find the nitrogen 1s peaks around 37.3 and 40.5. And here multiple peaks were observed, binding energy peaks were observed around 400.6, 398.9 and 397.2 electron volts. These binding energy values confirm the presence of both substituted nitrogen and interstitial nitrogen. So these were confirmed from the XPS spectra. And going to ESR, I think the next slide. So we have taken a ESR spectrum for these samples, and the samples ESR spectrum were recorded at 77 degree Kelvin, and bismuth WNT sample shows 3 peaks corresponding to G values of 1.982, 2.003 and 2.020, confirming the presence of nitrogen in the interstitial site, which is precisely paramagnetic nitrogen oxide. Further, the peak at 2.003 can be contributed to the singly ionized oxygen vacancy. The 2 weak satellite peaks at 2.020, 1.98 can be assigned to the perturbation peaks corresponding to ionized oxygen vacancy adjacent to nitrogen. And Bi0, BiWNT shows only a single peak G value of 2.003 corresponding to oxygen vacancy, and it is referred to as F centers. The nitrogen present is as a paramagnetic NO in the case of BiWNT, and it is diamagnetic in the case of Bi0, BiWNT sample. These are the ESR results. And next is photoluminescence spectroscopy spectra, which is to your right side, and various peaks. The peak means in this spectra something is recombining. What is exactly recombining is what we are supposed to characterize. At different wavelengths, this recombination takes place. So we have given different peaks, what is exactly causing that peak. At 410p, it is the electronic transition between valency band and the conduction band. At 442, it is the charge transfer from Ti3+ to oxygen anion in TiO6 octahedra. 469, the recombination is occurring at oxygen vacancies. 484, it is a recombination in the defect states like Ta3+ VO. And 600, it is surface states or defect states or band gap energy states, the recombination can occur. So the photocatalytic activity is, I'll finish in 5 minutes, madam. Hello? This is photocatalytic activity. It is shown in this, we have plotted log C0 by C versus time. And we can see that it is all this activity is done under solar light, and the longitude and latitude is mentioned. This solar activity is shown in this graph. We can see that the green triangles represents activity of BIWNT with some additional reagent. BI0 BIWNT is the most efficient catalyst. But in addition to this catalyst, some of the reagents we have added, that is H2O2 or sodium Na2SO3. And whatever time periods it has taken to degrade the pollutant is given here. And it is the rate constants are also mentioned in the second column. We can observe that the rate constant was around 4.5 into 10 to the power of -2 for BI0 BIWNT sample. And it increased with the additional electron acceptors to this reaction solution, like H2O2 and sodium sulfite. And the percentage degradation is mentioned in the third column. Photonic efficiency is also mentioned. Photonic efficiency is calculated using those formulas. How to calculate I0 is given in the second formula, and photonic efficiency psi is calculated using the first equation. So half-life of the reaction is also given in the last column. So this I think the same figure I have given here. What are the reaction mechanisms which are taking place when I have added H2O2 or when I have added Na2SO3 is shown in this slide. The peroxo radical forms a complex kind of structure at Ti4+ site, and this complex absorbs the light and it gets excited, and the excited molecule gives the electron, and that is the mechanism shown here in the first set of reactions. H2O2 also absorbs the electron. Under UV light, H2O2 also absorbs, and very less H2O2 absorbs visible light. But even then, what are the radicals formed? Hydroxyl free radical and OH minus radicals are formed. So SO3 2- ion also absorb light and it gets excited, and H2O, the valence band hole reacts with water and forms again hydroxyl radicals. And these hydroxyl radicals reacts with SO3 2- ions, and free radicals of SO3- dot is formed. These are the proposed reactions. And now when we say these are the reactions and this is the way it is getting degraded, etc., we are supposed to propose a mechanism by which this is taking place. Now here I have given two figures. The two circles, that is violet and yellow oval shaped circles, represent TiO2. One is in the anatase phase, the other one is in rutile phase. So both these figures represents only BI0 BIWNT catalyst sample. Now for the first this thing, we can take up the bicrystalline framework. Bicrystalline is anatase and rutile. What we can observe is both these crystallites have equal, almost similar crystallite size, 18.7 nanometers. The interface formed between anatase and rutile can effectively suppress the charge carrier recombination, but as shown in the figure. In the case of solar light irradiation, the rutile phase absorbs the visible light because the band gap of rutile phase is lesser compared to the band gap of anatase phase. Electrons are excited to the conduction band. These electrons can they can move into the anatase phase crystal structure to the dopant levels like W6+ and Vi3+ or 5+. So they are available for further reactions at both the band energy levels. It can be taken up by the oxygen, and the oxygen superradicals are formed. And the same way, the holes from anatase phase can move uphill to the rutile phase, and there they are available to OH. They can convert hydroxyl ions, OH minus ions, to OH free radicals. This is one of the type of mechanism proposed for this thing. And there is another way of looking at these things also, that is referred to as the Z scheme. The position of energy levels are shown already in the figure. In this Z scheme, when we reach spontaneous emission and stimulated emission, some kind of stimulation of the takes place. Exactly, it may not be like a laser. In the case of laser, the population inversion has to be maintained. But here what happens is, the electrons excited can interact with the electromagnetic radiation, and they become more highly energetic, and these electrons are available for the photocatalytic degradation reactions, and they are more potential for the degradation. So the surface plasmon effect of bismuth metal nanoparticle deposits on the surface is explained in this cell. These things, I think in my first slide itself, I have explained these equations. What kind of vacancies are formed, how is it, whether it is neutral or charged, all these things I have explained in my first slide. That is tungsten, if it takes titanium lattice site, there is 2 excess positive charges. For compensation of this excess charges, 4 electrons are present, and a vacancy in titanium is created. So W6 plus 2 ions means 12 plus, Ti4 plus 3 ions means 12 plus. So for every 3 titanium ions, 2 tungsten ions can be tungsten ion replaces 3 titanium ions. That's how titanium vacancies are created. And likewise for bismuth, titanium is pushed towards interstitial sites, and oxygen vacancies are created. All these equations are represented in this slide. So how is this nitrogen in interstitial site and nitrogen at lattice site, substitutional nitrogen and interstitial nitrogen is explained in this figure, in this slide. And the sol gel method, the temperature of annealing or temperature of calcination is around 500 degrees centigrade. This results only in nitrogen interstitial site, whereas in the hydrothermal preparation, nitrogen is occupying substitutional lattice site of oxygen. The activation energy involved for transition of interstitial nitrogen to substitutional nitrogen is 2.34 electron volts, and that of Ns to Ni is only 0.51 electron volts. So that is how more of interstitial nitrogen is found in ordinary preparations. The reaction carried out under the influence of both temperature and pressure might provide excess energy to overcome the potential barrier, and interstitial nitrogen levels are formed at 0.3 electron volts above the valency band, and substitutional nitrogen forms around 0.14 electron volts. Is due to the higher activity of Bi0, Bi-W and T is due to the presence of higher number of vacant oxygen sites that are created by the substituted nitrogen. So I think I have told these things. Let us go to the next slide. That is conclusion. So what the conclusions we can take here is, though we took bismuth nitrate as the source material, when incorporated into the titanium lattice, we could see that bismuth was present in different oxidation states, that is bismuth 3+, bismuth 5+, and metallic bismuth. So the sample prepared by sol gel method contains only interstitial nitrogens, and the sample prepared by hydrothermal method contains both interstitial and substitutional nitrogen. And we have found that the specific surface area of the sample prepared by hydrothermal reduction method was very high, 107.5 meters square per gram, and bismuth BIWNT prepared by hydrothermal reduction method had two different phases, anatase and anatase and rutile crystal structures, and they have similar crystallite sizes, 18.7 nanometers, and the charge transfer can efficiently take place when the crystallite sizes are almost similar. These kind of results we have published in our previous papers, and the presence of substitutional nitrogen results in higher oxygen vacancies, and this is confirmed by ESR spectra. The oxygen vacancies can act as active spots for absorption of oxygen molecules, which is very much necessary to trap the conduction band electron, and Ba0 nanometallic deposits on the surface of BIWNT shows surface plasmon resonance effect. And another important thing I had not mentioned here is the work function of semiconductor is less than the work function of the metal. Therefore, here the junction between the two cannot be called as Schottky junction. Instead, we can call it as ohmic junction. That means the Ohm's law is followed between the junction, and so this is about my work, one of the work which is done in our laboratory, and we wanted, no work was done regarding in the incorporation of bismuth into TiO2 lattice. That is what we have done, and these are our publications. This is one of our review article was accepted in Journal of Physical Chemistry, and this research article was given just a publication state. It was not given. It was not sent back for any review or anything. And this article was also taken for cover page, and this is the cover page we had that time for Journal of Physical Chemistry, and it has quite a good number of citations. And this is another review what we have published in Royal Society Chemistry Advances, and one of my student Kavita had worked for this review, and it was most downloaded article during those days. Now we have not updated these things. The impact factor and citations are not updated anyway. So many of our papers was the highest cited articles in many of these journals, and again these are also not updated. We have to update it further, and these are all our several reviews we wrote in this field, and so this is another review which has the impact factor of 7.4. It was published in Applied Catalysis B Environmental, and it has more citations. I think this was sometime 1 or 2 years back we had taken it, and these were the students who are working in my lab. Most of them are abroad, and they are working in several reputed institutions. So the boy who is standing next to me was the person, he's Girish. He had written that first review, which was published in American Chemical Society Journal. And these are the girls. Once I had only boys in my group, and next time I had only girls, and the girl in the green dress is the one who has done the work, whatever I presented today. And thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your research findings related to photocatalysis, and thank you for giving your valuable time. If participants have any query, they can ask Devi ma'am.
Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
I think participants are satisfied from your presentation, ma'am. So that's why they have not queried.
No, not that. The problem is, the thing is, I think I should say sorry also, because while giving lecture, both the things never came. Anyway, I was able to show the slides at the last minute. I'm really sorry for the disturbance what I have caused. Thank you for this thing. Any clarifications or any questions, they can send me. I will answer them later. Maybe time is already lagging. I think you should go ahead. Thank you for providing me this opportunity. The organizers have really taken a lot of pain to arrange these things. Thank you, sir, for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving your valuable time. So moving ahead, we are starting with the third and last lectures of today's technical session. And speaker for this session is Professor Dalila Hamishe. Let me introduce our speaker. She is presently working as lecturer class A in polymer processing at the University of Béjaï, Algeria. Her research interest in the area aspects of processing and structure property relationship of polymer composites, development of eco-composites, etc. She is presently acting as reviewer of many reputed journals. She has more than 20 papers published in national and international journals of repute. She also has books chapters published in her credit. She has attended many national and international conferences. With this short introduction, I would like to call Professor Hamishe to deliver talk on the topic chemical treatment effect on composite materials property. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Oh, man. Is it visible?
Yeah, yes.
Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. And at first, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to participate in this event, international webinar. And today, I am going to talk about chemical treatment effect on composite materials, properties, of course. So I am going to start by doing the difference between the past and nowadays about using materials. As you can I think I will use the just a minute. Okay, I am here. I will show the difference using the materials in the past and nowadays. For example, if I talk about the toys of our children, in the past we used wood and metals, but today we are using plastic. Same thing about packaging, food packaging. In the past we used glass, and today we are using plastic. The same thing in build construction. For example, the pipes are today's are with plastic, but in the past we used only cement and metals. the best example that I can talk about it is this table, for example. In the past, we use glass and metal or wood and metal, but today we are using plastic, only plastic. I mean here that the plastic can displace all materials such as glass and the wood and the metals. And more than, we can get a table with different colors, with different and beautiful designs. So if I ask you this question, and when we look all these materials which are composites, I ask you what do the aeronautic and aerospace, transport, building construction, and of course sports have in common? The answer of this question is clear. Of course, it is polymer or plastic, which are here these materials, the composite materials, are mainly composed of or are mainly based on polymer. Okay, let's, in this slide, I will give you the short definition of composite. Composite materials are formed by combining two or more materials. I mean here that composite must be composed by two materials and with different properties, of course, without dissolving or blending them into each other. The individual compounds remain separate and distinct from the final structure. It can be to serve properties superior to the properties of the individual constituents. Here in this my presentation, I will only talk about composites based on polymer and vegetable fibers or lignocellulosic fibers. Okay, well, what is the problem with these composites? Because it is the affinity between the two compounds here, matrix and fiber. And all properties of composites depend on various parameters, such as the aspect ratio, the fiber orientation, the dispersion, the state of dispersion of these fibers, the mixing time, and of course, processing conditions. But most studies involved that the investigation of the mechanical properties and also thermal and physical properties of composites in terms of plastical size, natural fiber content, I mean here the quantity of fiber used, but mainly the main problem is the adhesion between polymer and fiber. There is an area, as you can see here, on the figure on the screen, there is an interface, there is an area which is called interface between matrix and fiber. If we have the good interface, that can lead to improve the properties, all properties between matrix and fiber. Okay. In this slide, I would like to show you that this area, which called the interface between matrix and fiber, there are many types of bands, and these bands created of the interface between fibers and polymers determine the physico-mechanical properties of composite materials. Indeed, if the matrix has no affinity for reinforcement, there is no affinity between matrix and fiber, so this we will have bad interface between them. So the transfer of stress will be bad, and that can cause the premature damage of these materials. Okay, what is the solution? The solution is the improvement of this interface by many ways, but I will talk only about chemical treatment. Chemical treatment generally, because the low interfacial properties between the fiber and polymer often reduce this potential as a reinforcing agent due to the hydrophilic nature of natural fibers.
कम ध्यान देती हूँ और मेरे को इन लोग बाद में ही करवा लेते हैं जो भी
Sorry. And chemical modifications are considered to optimize the interface of fiber. Chemicals may active hydroxyl group of introduce a new moieties that can effectively interlock with the matrix. Okay, about chemical modifications, I will talk about 3 ways. The first one is chemical treatment of fiber. The second one, I will talk about dispersing agent. And the third one about coupling agent. About chemical treatment of fiber, the aims of this treatment is to block because lignocellulosic fibers or vegetable fibers are rich in hydroxyl groups on this structure, and this hydroxyl group can cause the bad affinity between fibers and matrix. So chemicals may activate these hydroxyl groups or introduce new moieties that can effectively interlock with the modification of natural fibers. Aims to improving the adhesion between polymer and matrix. I will talk. I give 3 examples. The first one is the alkaline treatment. According to this equation, alkaline treatment, or it is also called mercerization, is one of the most used chemical treatment of natural fibers when used to reinforce. So thermoplastics and thermosets. The important modification done by alkaline treatment is the disruption of hydrogen bonding in the network structure. Addition of aqueous sodium hydroxide and NaOH to natural fiber promote the ionization of the hydroxyl groups to the alkoxide. The second example is the benzylation treatment. Benzoyl chloride is most often used in fiber treatment, and it includes benzoyl, which is attributed to the decreased hydrophilic nature of the treated fiber, and improved interaction with the hydrophobic matrix. It can improve the affinity between fiber and the matrix. And the reaction between the cellulosic hydroxyl group and the fiber and benzoyl chloride.
Hello. Hello. Hello, Dalila madam. Madam, hello. Unmute yourself and share the screen again. Unmute yourself, madam. Hello, unmute.
Sorry, I think there was a network problem.
Okay. Share the screen again, yeah.
Yeah, I am trying to share the screen. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay, I don't know. I was with acetylation, I think. Okay, The third way is to use the acetylation of fibers. As it is clear on the screen, acetylation describes a reaction introducing an acetyl function groups into an organic compound. And the acetylation of natural fibers is well known in the esterification method, causing plastifications of cellulosic fibers. And the reaction involves the generation of acetic acid as a byproduct, which must be removed from the lineocellulosic materials before the fiber is used. The chemical modification with acetic anhydride substitute the polymer hydroxyl groups of the cell wall with acetyl groups, modifying the properties of these polymers so that they become hydrophobic. And at this level, we can improve the affinity between polymer and fibers. So I will give you some studies that's used, they used the alkaline treatment or the chemical treatment of fiber. For example, this study, it is the comparison between untreated and alkali treated of olive husk flour. Olive husk flour is fiber, and it is used to reinforce the polymers. Here we use the PLA or polyacid lactic as matrix, and the olive husk flour as reinforcement, with and without chemical treatment. Ça marche pas. As you can see on the screen, it is the comparison between the same micrographs of untreated and treated fibers using silan, alkaline, and benzoylation treatment. These figures show that for the composite prepared using untreated fibers, so without treatment, there is visible gaps can be seen between fiber and PLA matrix, suggesting poor and interfacial adhesion. This presumably arises because of the incompatibility between fibers and matrix, as well as the presence of the impurities of the olive husk flour surface. However, the surface morphologies of treated composite are different. Indeed, the treated fibers are coated by layers of matrix materials that considerably reduce the gaps between them. It is also observed that the layers of materials are pulled out together with the fiber during impact fracture, which further substantiates adhesion between the fiber and the matrix. The same analysis indicates that the matrix fiber is better defined with treated olive husk flour. The micrographs of the treated composite indicate clearly that the surface treatment boosted adhesion between olive husk flour and the matrix, and show that this fiber is well surrounded by the matrix when we use the treatment. The second study is about the effect of the treatment on the olive husk flour on the degradation of it based on polyacid lactic. At the first, we sorry. At the first, we prepared the composite by extrusion and studied the biodegradation of PLA and composite in the presence of bacteria. As you can see on this screen, at the left, show the Sagar-related evolution from PLA and composite. Here we observed a slight increase in sugars at 3 weeks. The values continue to increase at week 6. From week 7, the chemical treatment of fiber leads to more rapid release. The initial degradation step of PLA consists of breaking down polymer chain into monomers. where the ester bonds are cleaved by the hydrolysis. This can be used by the microorganism that leads to the production of carbon dioxide and biomass. So the addition of treated fiber enhances the biodegradability of the composite and may thereby facilitate the release of the sugar into the environment, which can serve as nutritional source for the cerebral and bacteria, especially with treated fiber. We also saw that the weight loss of the composites we treated during 6 weeks of degradation time was 80%, while the weight loss of meat PLA and the composite without treatment was 40 and 50 respectively. Here we can say that after treatment we have more degradation of this composite. So the treatment accelerates the degradation process of a composite. Another study about degradation, but here in water. In water, we use the water to degrade these materials. Here we use PHBP as matrix and the alpha fiber as reinforcement, with and without treatment. Okay, this figure illustrates the mass evolution of the immersion time in distilled water for the neat matrix and untreated and treated fibers. Here it is worth noting that there was a very distinguished behavior between the neat matrix and the composites. And there was a great difference between the response of composite manufactured without and with fiber treatment. From these figures, there are two different strands. There is slight mass loss for the neat matrix and the mass gain for untreated composites. The diffusion of distilled water seems too fast for untreated composites. One of the possible reasons can be the hydrophilic temperament of alpha fiber, which causes an important water absorption in the composite. The mechanical surface of the treatment, of the chemical treatment modification of the fiber supports the decrease of water absorption rate of the composite. Here, I mean that after treatment, we can decrease the absorption behavior. In this case, the decrease in mass due to the hydrolysis of the matrix is noted, and the fibers acted as a base for the water diffusion in the biocomposite. In terms of degradability characteristic, the treated composites were highly biodegradable compared to both neat PHBP and untreated composite when subjected to water absorption in distilled water. Here, I mean that after treatment, we can accelerate the degradation of these composites. The second way, or the second treatment, is the using of dispersing agent. Why? Simply because when we use natural fibers or vegetable fibers as reinforcement in composite materials, we have two problems. The first one is the affinity between fibers and matrix. I mean the interface. We have to obtain the good interface between fibers and matrix, but also the dispersion of the fibers. We have to avoid the aggregation of the fibers in the matrix in order to obtain good properties. The dispersant agents are effective means to develop composite materials to get better processability. And of course, to improve many properties such as thermal and mechanical properties. Dispersants adhere to the fiber as well as the polymer through chemical bonds or through chain entanglement. Thus, the dispersant role is to foster the homogeneity and limit defect sites by means of the agglomerate to give better dispersion of the fibers. Dispersants are surface active agents being composed of two segments, chemically different. And the dispersed particles are more likely to coat with matrix than also present a better interface to transfer the stress. Here, when we use the dispersant agent, we because fibers are rich in hydroxyl groups, it can be formed. It can form the band or the link between fibers and fibers instead between fibers and the matrix. That's why we use dispersant agent in order to improve the dispersion of fibers in the matrix. I will show you one study used this treatment. In this study, the efficient of 3 dispersant agents are used to improve the dispersion of fibers in the matrix. Here they use the PLA or the polyacid lactic. Composites were prepared by twin screw extrusion, followed by compression molding, and the morphology of the mechanical properties were evaluated. As you can see on this figure, we can understand that there is an improvement of modulus compared to PLA. The flexure properties of the composite treated by the coupling agent or the dispersing agent is clearly higher than those treated or treated with others coupling dispersing agent. It is probably to the more even distribution of this fiber in the PLA matrix. When the fiber is well dispersed in the matrix, we can reach the more better properties. Of course, here I am talking about mechanical properties. It is also worth to underline that the degradation rate of composite, according to thermogravimetry analysis, was considerably reduced, which suggests that fiber retards the degradation of matrix, in particular with after treatment. The improvement of thermal stability of composite materials is attributed to the better dispersion of fiber and the formation of interaction between matrix and fibers instead between fibers and fibers, which hindered the thermal degradation process of composite compounds. Here, I would like to say that the better dispersion after using the coupling agent can improve the thermal behavior of composite. The third way to improve the adhesion between fiber and matrix is to use the coupling agent. Coupling agents are molecules processing with 2 functions. The first function is to react with the hydroxyl groups of cellulose, and the second one is to react with functional group of the matrix. When the coupling agent is situated at the interface between fiber and matrix and interact with both, the interfacial tension can be reduced and compatibility can be increased. We can improve the compatibility or the affinity between matrix and composite. Here I give you the reaction between fiber and the coupling agent. This is the PPGMA with anhydride function. This function, this anhydride molecule will react with the hydroxyl group of fibers, and there will be a good adhesion between 2 compounds. In this slide, also, I am giving the one study that used the coupling agent. Here, the composite is based on PVC, polyvinyl chloride, which is reinforced with natural fibers. and we use PVC GMA as the coupling agent. As you can see, the structure of this coupling agent, PVC GMA. PVC is the part which will interact with and adhere with PVC polymer, and this function will interact with a hydroxyl group of fibers, and there will be a good adhesion between them that can lead to improve all properties of composite materials. According to this study, it must be noted that the coupling agent improved the compatibilization at the interface level of the composite. Confirmation of this effect was obtained from this figure, SAM, where the we don't use the PVC GMA. We can see that present broad interface between both compounds of the composite, characterized by the holes around the fibers and the holes left by them by pellet when the specimen was assayed. This result is consistent with the low adhesion of the polymer matrix on the surface of the fibers due to the low compatibility. But when we use the coupling agent, as it is clear in the second figure, we can see the homogeneous materials characterized by a well-dispersed reinforcement inside the polymer matrix and by the absence of holes between the matrix and fibers. This result clearly demonstrates that the treatment of the composite or the use of PVC GMA or this coupling agent provides a strong interfacial adhesion and a good rating between fibers and matrix. The second study is also a composite based on PVC and matrix using coupling agent, PVC GMA as coupling agent. As you can see on the screen, evidently both the apparent TG, the transition temperature, and the amplitude of the tangent delta peak correlate with the nature of the polymer filler at the interface, of course. And tangent delta reflect the mobility and the movement capacity of molecular chain segments during glass transition. It is clear that the movement of PVC chain segments during glass transition were significantly limited and obstructed by the presence of rigid fiber molecular chain, because generally vegetable fibers are rigid, and it can increase the rigidity of materials, resulting in much smaller tangent delta peaks in composite samples. And also, as we can see in this figure, the peak amplitude is decreased with the addition of compatibilizers. When we add the compatibilizer or the coupling agent, the peak amplitude is decreased. This is expected because the decrease of segment of amplitude indicates that the number of molecular segments involved has decreased to improve adhesion between filler and matrix. Furthermore, the tangent delta peak position, the temperature transition of modified system is clearly shifted toward a higher temperature relative to others. The shift in this peak also shows that the molecular motion is restricted, and this confirms strong interaction between filler and matrix due to the better compatibility between PVC and fiber. As conclusion, I can say that serious problems of natural fibers is their strong polar character, which create incompatibility with most polymer matrices. Surface treatment having a negative impact on economics are potentially able to overcome the problem of incompatibility. And chemical treatments can increase the interface adhesion between the fiber and matrix and decrease the water absorption, for example, of fibers. Some compounds are known to promote adhesion by chemically coupling the adhesive of the material, such as sodium hydroxide, silan, acetic acid, and malleated coupling.
हाँ स्पोरोफाइट है, मार्केंसिया गेनोकप है, रिक्सिया स्पोरोफाइट है, मार्केंसिया थैरस, रिक्सिया थैरस। Hello, Tiwari madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Madam has finished, na?
Okay,
But
yes, sir.
I asked her, any participant having any queries, okay?
Okay, but she's online?
Yes,
sir?
yes.
Okay.
Something, there is a network problems, okay? Na?
Yes, sir. I think so. Participants, if you have any query, you can write it in the chat box. There is some network issue, so hopefully ma'am will resume shortly. Sir, shall we wait for 2 more minutes?
Yes,
and
1
then
minute only. We can wait for 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
Okay, na? Oh, so we have time. There is no madam still not joined. Hello, Tiwari madam. So we can take.
Yes, sir. I'm listening.
We can take 1 or 2 feedback from the participants if they are ready. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. Participants, if you want to share your feedback on the present international webinar, please come and share on this platform. Please, participants, whatever the takeaway you have taken from this today's international webinar, you are invited to share on this platform.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hamisha ma'am, for your informative and elaborative presentation. Because of some network issue, you were not there. We asked participants if they have any query. Hello.
for inviting.
Some network issue.
Okay.
किसी specific person or character को.
Madam is sharing the screen. Okay.
इसका एग्जांपल वीणा वाणी जी.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and thanks everyone for working.
Hello, Sarita madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can we wait, madam? I'm trying to join, na, but
yes, sir.
Network issues are there. There is no connectivity.
फीडबैक लिंक को भेज ही नहीं रहे.
Yes, we will post it in the group and on the chat box. I'll again invite some of the participants. If they want to share their view on today's event, they can come and share with us.
Okay, madam. No, there is no participant ready to give the feedback. Okay, na. So
okay, sir.
We can go to the end. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So finally,
yes,
we have come to the end of this today's international webinar, and now I request Professor Gunale sir to propose vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. Today, just we have completed this IUPAC Global One Breakfast 2022 International Webinar on empowering diversity in the science, which is organized by Department of Chemistry, Kamla Nehru Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, and Association of Chemistry Teachers, Mumbai, ACT Mumbai, in collaboration with Department of Chemistry, Kalisalingam Academy of Research and Education, Ishnacoil. So first of all, I would like to thank Honorable Dr. Suhasini Vanjari Madam, President of Amar Seva Mandal, and Honorable MLC Advocate Abhijit Vanjari Sir, Secretary of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur. They always have been a source of inspiration for us. And as a convener of this webinar, I am thankful to Honorable Professor D.V. Prabhu Sir, General Secretary of ACT, for kind support in organizing the webinar and accepting our invitation to preside over inauguration session of this IUPAC GWB-2022 webinar. I express my thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Bipul Saha, former Director of R&D NACL Industries Limited, Hyderabad, and Bureau Member of IUPAC, who accepted our invitation and delivered a graceful speech on this occasion. I also express my thanks to Dr. Smita Vanjari Madam, Treasurer of Amar Seva Mandal, Nagpur, who accepted our invitation and delivered a graceful speech on this occasion. I am also thankful to Professor Brijesh Pare, President of ACT, for support in organization of this international webinar, but due to some unavoidable circumstances, Sir could not join in today's webinar. I am personally and on behalf of organizing committee thankful to all the three resource persons. Number one is Professor Glady Completo, Professor of Chemistry, Institute of Chemistry, University of Philippines. Madam has Madam have delivered a talk on the diversity in chemistry research from sugar to glycoconjugates and elaborate all the topics related to this diversity in the chemistry research. Our another second speaker was Professor L. Gomati Devi Madam, Honorable Vice Chancellor from Maharani Cluster University, Bangalore. Madam has given the talk on the surface plasmonic resonance effect for efficient photocatalysis. Madam have given different methods and different methods of characterization and detail about the efficient photocatalysis. And third speaker, Professor Dalila Amechi from Algeria. Madam has given the talk on the chemical treatment effect on the composite material properties and elaborate in detail different types of properties, characterization and synthesis method of this chemical treatment effect on the material properties. I also express thanks to our principal, Dr. D.S. Badvaik sir, Vice Principal, Dr. Professor P.B. Dahika sir, for guiding us from time to time to make this international webinar a grand success. I also express my thanks to Professor Swaminathan, co-convener of this IUPAC webinar, for cooperation in organization of international webinar. I also thankful to all the participants from the various states of India and from 30 different countries like France, Australia, United States, Bangladesh, Taiwan, Indonesia, Nigeria, UAE, Malaysia, Egypt, Nepal, Mexico, Nepal, Oman, South Korea, Canada, Philippines, Tanzania, Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong, China, Morocco, Pakistan, Georgia, Iran, Iraq, for giving warm response to this international webinar. So now all these top members of our college, of the department, also need to be thanked because they did not leave unturned to make this webinar a grand success. So at last, I give thanks to all those who have helped us directly or indirectly to make this international webinar GWB-2022 a grand success. So once again, thank you all the participants and resource persons. Thank you, thanking you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for proposing vote of thanks.
Hello, madam. Before that announcement, whatever you are giving, okay, we are taking one photograph. Okay, good photographs.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so
yes.
those are on the Zoom. Please turn on
Yes.
your video camera.
Videos.
So that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can take the photographs.
I
So
request
photographs,
all
yeah.
the participants to turn on their video. So we will have a group photograph of this event.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, madam, Glady madam and Professor Dalila madam.
Thank you all to all the speakers and the participants. And there's a short information for all the participants that the link for the feedback will be posted in the group as well as in the chat box. And now, with the kind permission of our chairperson, I declare the end of today's international webinar. We are sure that you have received paramount information from today's event and hope to see you in future in other scientific events. Till then, stay happy and healthy. A goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye, ma'am.
Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
सर नमस्ते।
Namaste, madam. Thank you.
जी।
Link is now posted in the chat box. You can fill it. After submission, you will get certificate immediately in your email. Okay.
खत्म मेरी आवाज तेरे में आ रही बंद कर दूं